whole school committee here.
Jake,
I'd like
just-
to, comments from the school committee. Go ahead.
You know, a lot of times when we have budget issues, one of the first things we hear is we should cut sports. Let's cut freshman sports, let's raise the fees. Fees are bad enough as they are. I think when you look at someone like Frank Carey, and the character he builds in his boys and then young men that have played for him, those guys are still around. You go to a regular season game, you go to a state game, you go to Facebook, you get emails from these guys.
The alumni game every Memorial Day. Guys from 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 years ago come back to Memorial Day to play in the alumni game.
You know, I'm not going to give Frank sole credit for this because most of these kids did have parents, but
Yeah, but he did that.
Right. But Frank built a loyalty to North Reading and North Reading High School and North Reading baseball, and he built kids with great character who are now adults with even better character. And I think that's testimony to what a great impact he had on our community.
And I'll tell you right now, as important as it was winning games for Coach Carey, and obviously he's won a lot of them, teaching kids how to play baseball was the most important thing he did. So I just say that from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you.
Could you come over here and take a picture of us?
Back here?
I'm just going to stand in front of Mel.
All right.
Why don't you shake hands with Jerry and pretend that you don't?
They can like
No, look at each other. Don't look at me. Look at Jerry. Jerry.
Take it
Get that look in your eyes, Jerry.
I love him. Get me.
One more. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Tower is supposed to be here, and hopefully he'll come in with the proclamation, but we'll see.
Thanks,
He's
Frank.
coming all the way from Boston. He's coming all the way from Boston. Okay. Thank you very much for coming, and,
Yeah. Good night.
Are we live?
We're live.
you ready to go?
We're
We're
live,
live. What
okay.
time is it, okay? Okay, the next item on the agenda is, I think, why most of the people are here. And by the way, before we do that, anybody here with public input on anything besides the park MCAS issue? Anything besides that? Okay, good. We're going to do a park presentation. I know that's, again, why most of you people are here tonight. I'm going to ask Dr. Daly, Director of Curriculum, to give a presentation regarding the park versus MCAS question. When Dr. Daly's done with the presentation, I'm going to ask for participation from the audience. And what we're going to do is, if you want to be recognized, please put your hand up. I'll recognize you. You come up to the podium. Just identify yourself. And we do want to try to keep it moving because there's a lot of people here. So try to get to the point. We want to hear from as many people as possible. When we're through with the public participation, I'm going to ask the school committee to comment on this issue. I'm going to ask the superintendent of schools to make a recommendation regarding the park MCAS question. And I want to remind people that if we're going to go with park, we really need to take a vote tonight. It has to be done before.
Everywhere else, there's plenty of chairs up here. You can sit at the
Yeah.
table. There's chairs up here if you don't want to stand.
Dr. Daly, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, members of the school committee, and it's great having so many people so energetic and involved in an issue involving the schools. We're very happy that it's been a great process to debate this tonight and to talk about it as a group. I've created sort of a summary of what we presented last week, and the way I approached this presentation, I've worked with the superintendent on it. We wanted to really frame tonight about answering questions about park. There was a lot of great information, a lot of great questions asked at our last meeting. And there were a lot of great questions that were in the transcript this week. And so I'm sure we'll hear some of those ideas tonight. So I'm hoping to be able to answer some of those questions because I know people come here tonight with many questions. on their minds. So I want to start off with making sure that we understand what this decision is really about. This is about a vote for the test that we take for 2014-15. This is not a question about what we do moving forward. No matter what, MCAS is changing. That's been told in many different ways, and I have a few slides to explain that to everyone in a few minutes. The test is changing no matter what. So when you hear that, districts are choosing to stick with MCAS, it's sticking for 1 year. And I think that's really important that we keep that in mind. This is not about the future. This is about 1 year and what's happening there. What's happened is this was an educational decision, and it's become a very political decision, and it's playing out across the country. We're hearing a lot of this about anti-Common Core sentiments are being tagged along to this. We've heard the term, I've heard Common Core labeled as Obama Core. You've heard a lot of states that are opting out of PARCC because it costs too much. Remember that in a lot of those states, the test cost a lot more than their current test. And quite frankly, what's happening in a lot of states is the standards that Massachusetts set are very, very high. We drove the boat on PARCC. Now other states are needing to be held to those same standards, and a lot of those states are saying they're having difficulty with the accountability, and so they're dropping out, and that's happening quite a bit. I'm a firm believer in states' rights, but I don't really think this is not a federally mandated piece. This is something that the governors from the different states have worked in. And I just want to share quickly, I teach a graduate course, and I have students in that course who are teachers and administrators of higher education around the country. And for the first time in the last couple of years, since we've been doing Common Core, our conversations are completely different because we're all working in all of the states on the same standards. Before that, it was, well, I'm in North Carolina, this is how we do it. I'm in New York, this is how we do it. I'm in Massachusetts, this is how we do it. Now we can all refer to those same standards. We can share best practices. We can share ideas. This is really where we're going as a country in order to compete in a global world. This is what's happening. MCAS was a wonderful test. I started off in education when this first came out. I've heard some refer to this as changing horses midstream. We've had MCAS for 15 years. It's been very good. It came out before there was Google, okay? And we are now in a very different world. And this is a world, you can't deny that tests are going to go to computers. Books and information is going to computers. It's more efficient to test on computers. This is what's coming. And our vote is really to prepare. Are we ready to prepare for what's next? Or do we wait 1 more year? That's really what tonight is all about. So I do want to say that we have the state of the all the presidents of the colleges in Massachusetts, the state colleges, leaders of Higher Education Commission, as well as the commission, recommending that this is what comes next. And really, I think it's important for everyone to understand that this was not an easy decision. The 12 administrators that are part of our administrative council and our leadership team really weighed this out. And this is not the easy decision. Really, the easy choice is to stick with MCAS. We are recommending something that's going to require more time and effort of our tech team. It's going to require a lot of time and effort of teachers and administrators, but in the big picture, it's the best decision for our children because we believe, with all the research we've done for the past 4 years of implementing Common Core, that this is where we're going, and this is really giving us a direction for our teachers to know that this is what's coming next, and we can prepare for it with the assessment and the end in mind. This is a slide that we saw, and as the superintendent said, she wasn't convinced that we should go to PARCC. But as we started going to these meetings in late spring, our first meeting was in late May, that the state presented to us, these are the slides that we saw. So why should a district elect to administer PARCC instead of MCAS? This second bullet, students participating in PARCC will have a head start on experiencing a next generation assessment, the type of assessment that all schools must administer beginning with the 2015-16 school year. Districts that choose to administer PARCC in 2015 will be able to do so at no risk. They will have their 2000 accountability levels held harmless. I heard in the newspaper there was a comment about Common Core. It said that the implementation will change the way our school system educates and tests your children. This is true. It has changed. I think if you talk to our teachers and our educators, it's changed in a lot of ways. It's more rigorous. We're being measured and held to different standards. But it's very, very important to realize that this vote tonight is not about Common Core. We adopted Common Core in 2010. We've spent the last 4 years realigning our curriculum, changing our assessments, working with all of our goals and educator evaluation, all aligned to Common Core. The park assessment is now coming online to finally give us feedback on what we've been doing for 4 years. The MCAS test is not fully aligned. The current test is not fully aligned. That's why it's changing no matter what next year. So the park test will be more aligned to the standards, and the questions will better measure the close reading, writing, critical thinking, and problem solving, as well as the transfer skills in both ELA and mathematics. Points were raised about the schedule of the testing. A quote was that MCAS is administered 1 time per year. Park is administered 2 times per year, with long-term plans to add 2 additional tests. And I believe those tests refer to the 9th and the 11th grade. I'm not sure, but I believe that's what that referred to. MCAS is currently administered in March and April for ELA, and May for mathematics, and June for science. Park will have a performance-based assessment for both ELA and math in March and April, and an end-of-year assessment in May and June. And the reason for this is there are different kinds of skills that they're able to assess. Right now, the only critical thinking and deep thinking skills are assessed in English language arts. They want to do that in mathematics also. And in order to do that, they need to do it a little bit earlier in the year so that they have time to turn those scores around. Part of what they're promising us in 2 years is to have those tests back to us at the end of the school year. Right now, we joke that we're doing an autopsy on a year that's passed us by because we don't get the results for MCAS until the fall. With computer-based testing, they're going to be able to turn around those scores more quickly, and they need a few months to score those more complicated answers. So that's why they're doing the March, April, and then the end of year in May and June. MCAS science continues at the tested grades for 5 and 8, and in this district we choose to do biology. So those will continue with the MCAS tests as they are now. There are some questions about time on testing. Park is a timed test. All students will have an estimated time on task as well as additional time. So all students will have a regulation period of 55 minutes for the test, and then all students have an additional 30 minutes for those assignments. Students who have untimed testing in their IEPs, and we're well aware that many students with disabilities are going to have that written into their IEPs so that they can have those untimed tests, we'll continue to have that testing accommodation. But there's lots of research that the state is providing us with that shows that non-disabled students who spend unlimited time on testing do no better than those working in timed testing situations. And believe me, this was hard for me. I was a teacher that pushed my students to take all day and keep writing and keep writing. The disruption of that for the whole day being disrupted for students going through makes the actual time spent on the park test less because the students are in and out of that lab or in and out of that paper pencil assignment at the end of the regulation time. We have students that are on IEPs in a separate area that are doing their testing, but the whole school can move forward after those testing sessions are ended. So that's a big change as far as the timing with Park and MCAS. There were questions raised about new and unfamiliar test formats. And I have to say to this one that this is exactly why we're suggesting we test drive Park in 2014-15. I'm not here to say that Park is the best test and is perfect. Park is a test that needs our feedback. And I have to say that I've been in a position where I've taken feedback from our teachers and students about the test this year, and I've seen those changes already coming to fruition in updates and changes that are coming out at the state level, both on the technology side and on the question side. And I'm happy to go into detail with many of those things. There's many things that still need to be worked out. But to take MCAS next year would mean that we're not even a part of that conversation. This is our chance to take the test that's coming down and make it the best possible test it can be. Again, teachers have been teaching to these standards since 2010. Park resources will be available to help teachers and students begin to prepare for new assessments starting right now. They've already been sending us out bullets of all the things that if you choose Park next year, because you're an early adopter, you will get all these resources, all these materials. You'll be invited to these meetings and these conversations. These are all events that North Reading would not be a part of if it's stuck with MCAS for next year. The North Reading teachers of Algebra 1 actually asked us if they could take Park, and the teachers across the district support this decision. We've talked about it through our administrators, have talked to the teachers throughout the district. I've had many conversations with the teachers' unions. If everybody felt that this was a vote to stop the train, to slow things down, to stick with MCAS because that's what's always worked, I'd be supporting that. We'd all be supporting that. We are in agreement that this is what's coming. The most helpful documents that have been created to dissect and understand and deconstruct the Common Core are the Park documents that have come out to help us understand what the focus areas should be. we want to finally start using those and embracing those and finally taking those steps forward. The teachers do support this decision. I have not had one, I left it open, I said, please come by anytime, write me emails. I haven't heard anyone say that this is not the right decision. Teachers do feel this is the best step for us, but they definitely have cautions and they have a lot of questions and they want us to give our feedback to the state before this is official the following year. Again, this is a held harmless year for those choosing parks, so schools and districts are held harmless in 2014-15. We heard that our school system is not technologically equipped to handle park, and many schools in Massachusetts lack the computers and the infrastructure for park. So I first want to say that we can absolutely support park in our computer labs. We pushed the test this year. In the computer labs, everything worked fine, and we are able to do that. Again, we're only going to be recommending one school so that we can have all of our technician staff on hand to be working through these issues and making sure that we're learning all of the bugs and the issues with the test and with testing in general so that we can improve when it does eventually scale up to more schools. Because we firmly believe that this eventually, maybe 3, 4, 5 years, is going to go to a computer-based test. Student devices are an integral component of digital learning, and the purchase of those devices is already a part of our technology plan. So again, we should be buying these devices because it's good for students to be learning and using technology as a tool to improve their education. As a result, we will have the devices, the infrastructure we need for our students for testing. But it's very important to note that a test like this sometimes does drive the bus at the higher level. And there's so much going on at the state level about state and federal funding for infrastructure and devices. We got more emails today from the state about national initiatives that we can join on to start getting more technology funding. We need infrastructure support. We need changes to the way our E-rate is funded so that we can buy infrastructure and actual devices. These are things happening at the state level. This is not things happening at the local level. As you know, we have a large cap. We're still going to continue to ask for technology. It has nothing to do with the testing. It's about our initiatives about digital learning moving forward. And we're going to continue to do that. That's why we're suggesting that the large cap that we have had approved for this year to put new computers at the Batchelder School, the Batchelder School becoming our site where we do our computer-based testing. It's logical that that's where we put our money and that's where we try to invest our technology for next year. There were concerns about additional expenses. Again, these costs are at the state level, not the district level. So when we talk about the cost of the test, that's the cost of the test that the state adopts. And what the state is telling us is, because of economies of scale, because there are many other states involved in this, this is actually going to be less costly than what MCAS is. Now the Department of Ed is putting together a full list of costs to the state. That's coming from them. But what they're telling us is, not only is it going to cost less, but they're actually going to be able to buy for us formative assessments that are included at no additional cost due to these economies of scale. These are assessments that do not exist now. MCAS does not have a formative assessment earlier in the year where teachers can actually go to the lab with students, take a test on a computer, get results immediately that are indicative of what students need help before they take these tests later in the year. These tests could replace some of the tests that we're doing in district now. And when teachers heard that, they were thrilled because we're doing so much to try to figure out how we can collect data, how we can go visual with that data, and how it can be authentic, similar to the way kids are going to be tested at the state level. To have a formative assessment included is a wonderful thing to be able to talk about. The state does recognize the need to increase the support for infrastructure and devices. But again, this is a battle that I think we need to continue to fight. We need to go back and say, you know what? We tried them on these devices and they weren't good enough. We need more devices. We need more money for those devices. We need more money for our wireless infrastructure. These are the battles that lie ahead. And we need that data and information to be able to make informed decisions and give informed advice to the state, who is voting for this. By the way, next fall of 2015, is when the state votes about the change to PARC or a different test called MCAS. The access to data. Currently, there's a lot of concern about whether Pearson will have access to data. Currently, Massachusetts does not own the data. Measured Progress is the company that does our testing in Massachusetts for MCAS. Measured Progress currently handles data for 500,000 students in grades 3 to 8 and 10 in Massachusetts. So when Pearson, who's the designer for PARC, they would be held accountable to all the same federal and state regulations that involve student data in the same way as Measured Progress is now. It's not handled by the state right now and by a private company in the future. It's already handled by a third-party company right
Patrick,
now.
just to add
Yes.
on, the DESE just released a report middle to late last week, which you can find on their website. It's not as detailed as I was hoping it would be, but it gives a lot of good insight into who's getting the data, who's qualified to get the data, and what the data is composed of. So if you go to the DESE website, you should be able to find that report that they issued last week. That was the Mass Association of School Committees had requested that report about a month ago, and some individual school committee members, including me, had requested it about 3.5 months ago. So we weren't happy that it took so long to get it, but the report's there now.
So again, 2014-15 is a test drive. It allows the students and teachers to experience these next generation assessments with school and district accountability held harmless. So it's a year when we're able to experience these new tests, and it will not change our ratings for schools and districts, which I explained in more detail at our last meeting. Our technology team is able to learn as much as possible about computer-based testing. Again, we're recommending one school with the entire team on the site. My team was there all day, every day for our 2 tests this year, and we have a lot of questions. And I wear 2 hats, curriculum and technology. And I'm telling you as both that this is the best choice for us to be able to prepare for what's coming next. North Reading educators, as I mentioned, have been involved in this discussion, and we want to provide our feedback to the Department of Ed for improvements to the test they will be taking in 2015-16. So again, our recommendation, these are the choices that we need to make. We're recommending the PARCC assessment in grades 3 to 8. We're recommending that the PARCC assessment in grade 9 for Algebra 1. So we're not recommending for English Language Arts in grade 9 or math or ELA in grade 11 at this time. But again, our teachers are the ones that requested this. We're starting a brand new algebra course, and they really want to see whether this brand new curriculum is meeting the standards that are being set. So the teachers have requested the PARCC assessment in grade 9 for Algebra 1. We are recommending a paper-based testing in 4 of our schools. So it would be very similar to MCAS as far as the style of the testing, but it would allow us to see the new types of questions that are part of the PARCC assessment. And we're recommending the computer-based testing at 1 school. We do have until October 31st to confirm that, so we want to make time over the summer as they're going to give us a lot more information about what the technology requirements are. And as we're purchasing new equipment, we want to make sure that we're ready to go. But the recommendation of that is so that we can, like I said, all hands on deck with the tech team, because at some point this will scale up. And if we're not ready to scale up, we want to fight that and say, we want more years of paper and pencil until we're ready. That's the kind of data we want to collect from our schools so that we can have those conversations at the state level. And that's all that I have here.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. Dr. Daly. Why don't we do this? Why don't you come around and face the audience and answer questions from here? If you have a question or comment, just raise your hand. You can stay at your seat, and then that way Dr. Daly can face the crowd, okay?
You need
So,
Patrick to have a microphone, Jerry, so that cable will...
you want to take one of the microphones? These microphones don't amplify, they're for the television.
But, yeah, for the
Yep,
TV,
yep.
so, okay.
Just so the TV picks everything up. So why don't we start? And again, be mindful that we have a lot of people, so we want to keep it as focused as we can. Yes, could you identify yourself?
My name is Julie Coffey. I live
Yeah.
at 5 Elvira Road.
Okay. You can come up to the podium.
I invited myself. I apologize.
You're a podium person, believe me.
I
I've
am.
heard you before.
Good evening. It has been a very busy 2 weeks. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you again on this important decision that greatly affects our children in North Reading. We are not the only ones facing this PARCC MCAS dilemma. Districts across Massachusetts are scrambling to make a decision before the state's June 30th deadline. Parents here want to be part of the discussion and decision process. With Superintendent Willis's impending retirement, we have no idea who will be leading us in October. Will this unknown person be ready to take on some pretty hefty responsibilities? First, opening our new high school, transitioning our middle schoolers to a new building, coordinating another big move the following year. Second, implementing PARCC. Our new educational leader may not know North Reading. Our administrators, our teachers, our students, our technology hardware and network infrastructure. Some of you, our school committee members, as well as district administrators, shared your opinions at the last school committee meeting. I need to share my thoughts on these ideas. Please don't tell us that PARC is inevitable. There is no evidence that supports this statement. Our Commissioner of Education, Mitchell Chester, has reiterated that Massachusetts remains undecided for the 2015-16 school year. Please don't tell me that PARC, not MCAS, better assesses our new learning standards. Please don't tell me that MCAS compels our students to simply regurgitate information. MCAS has evolved over the past 16 years. Learning standards have changed, most recently with our adoption of the Common Core. Per the State of Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, MCAS is now fully aligned with our Common Core-based standards. Our standards and assessments have involved the feedback and support of our educators over the years. Our own North Reading teachers have invested substantial time into aligning our learning standards based on the state's educational initiatives. PARC is still in the pilot process. Our students in North Reading receive a stellar education and do very well on MCAS tests each year. Why should we jeopardize this? The Massachusetts Teachers Association newly elected president, Barbara Mataloni, is against PARC's implementation this year. She feels it limits the voice of our educators. Please don't tell me that PARC, in being test ready, will help our students become 21st century digital learners. My work as a technology integration specialist has shown me that authentic digital learning experiences should drive our district's technology initiatives. Devices do not teach. Teachers, armed with a well-planned curriculum, do. My children's education, what they learn, is most important. With the need to prepare our students for a new, unfamiliar format, as well as the increased testing time periods, I fear that PARC will consume too much of my children's vital learning time. Dr. Daly shared the same concern at a November school committee meeting, stating, "The most important thing is to be in the classroom learning, not in the computer lab taking tests." The list of districts that have discussed many of these concerns, opting to stay with MCAS, continue to grow. Peabody, Lynnfield, Wilmington, Lexington, Cambridge, Quincy, Hamilton-Wenham, Masco, Framingham, Grafton, Harvard, Hingham, Hopkinton, Medford, Needham, Lowell, Salem, Swampscott, Medway, Manchester, Essex, and many others. Some communities are still in the decision process. My main message is this: there's no rush to choose PARC. We have been granted this year to choose what's best for our students in North Reading and prepare for what's ahead. We should stick with MCAS until the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education makes its decision next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Combs.
Thank you.
All right, I just had a couple of specific things in response to her, so.
Okay,
I'll
go
wait.
ahead. No.
I just want to say,
Mr. Left.
it's not a done decision in terms of the state, but last week, Commissioner Chester was quoted as saying it would be a disservice to Massachusetts students if the state does not move forward with the Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers, and education officials are working with lawmakers to nail down the cost of transitioning to the test that aligns with federal Common Core standards. It would be a huge mistake to pause or turn back the clock right now, Chester said during a conference call with reporters detailing observations from the test tryout conducted this spring. Our educators have been at work for 3 years now, realigning the curriculum, the new assessments that are designed to be attuned to that. So while I agree that it's not a done decision, I'm going to state that it's a done decision.
All right, thank you, Mr. Webster. Next, yes, sir, wherever you're comfortable. If you want to come up to the podium, come up. If
Can I
not, you can
address
sit.
something? Or? No. Can I address something quickly?
Go ahead.
I just want to thank you. That was well said, and I do agree. It's all about teaching in the classroom. Just to speak to other districts, we're well aware of all these other districts, and this is a decision. The commissioners basically said it's going to be 50-50, and we're going to come out this way. The superintendent and I have been in many, many meetings recently where these are our friends in these other districts. We talk to them all the time about these things. and we're very similar. I can't speak necessarily to why they're making their decisions, but I can say that Superintendent and I talk regularly, and we still have not heard one compelling reason to stick with MCAS. It hasn't changed our mind about this. It comes down to, do you want to get a head start, or do you want to wait for them to tell us what to do? And I think that is the debate. If you want to wait and be handed something, but we want to have a head start. And what I can speak to, though, is that our district is prepared. I'll speak to the technology. A lot of districts are panicking a little bit because they're not tech ready. There's something called proctor caching. A lot of districts didn't read the manuals, didn't do the webinars as our team did. We knew that you can't just try to go online and take this test back and forth with Pearson. We proctor cached, we kept it local, and we sent up packets of information. We didn't have the problems that a lot of districts have had. A lot of districts have not jumped headfirst into aligning their curriculum. There's still districts out there that we think of in the highest regard who are still calling that they have Algebra 2 in 8th grade. There's absolutely no way they can have Algebra 2 in 8th grade unless they've ignored everything that's come out with Common Core. I know in North Reading we're ready for these things. So a lot of districts that I have a lot of respect for, they're in different places than we are. And again, it's about trusting the 12 people that sit around the table to make a lot of decisions that this is the best decision for our kids.
Thank you, Dr. Yes, sir. Could you just come up and identify yourself?
Yeah. Hi, my name is John Barrett, and just for the record, I'm a parent of a 6th grader who cannot reliably do long division using the Common Core method and was never taught the traditional method of long division and is highly frustrated. So that's just one example. As we proceed to a decision about a large investment on the community's part, the investment being time and money, this seems to be driven by promises of state and federal funding raining down over our community to pay for a long sustainment tale of technology, as if technology in the classroom is going to just solve all of North Reading's school problems, to which I have the question: what root cause problems, what are the specific problems that the North Reading school system has in educating our children? What are the root causes of those problems? And what is the evidence that we have that this system will solve those root cause problems? Okay? I would like to pose that, because in my estimation, this is about dollars and money and the way the country is going or not going. States across the land are leaving behind the Common Core curriculum in whole. Teachers across the land are quitting their posts to homeschool their kids. Common Core math at the elementary level especially, and the middle school level, is not less confusing than regular math. It's more confusing. There are stories across the nation of frustrated elementary school and middle school kids trying to learn this new math. While these techniques may be appropriate for high school, potentially, or college level kids, there is no evidence that the Common Core curriculum in the elementary and middle school is teaching our children better or faster in the math skills. So the question I have is the return on investment. What is the return on investment of changing horses in midstream and going to this technology-based, long sustainment tale? We're going to be paying for this for the rest of our natural lives, and the promises of federal and state funding. What problems will this solve that the North Reading school system has? In this school system, we have nation-leading schools. We're in the top 30 or so in the state. How can this make our school system better? I've never heard an answer to that question. Thank you.
Dr., you want to respond? I'm going to ask Dr. Bailey to respond to Mr. Barrett.
Just a couple of things to say, and I said this earlier, I'm not sure if you heard, but this is not a vote about Common Core. Common Core has been in this district since 2010. We have many feelings about Common Core. I will address, though, because I have heard that raised about the math. I brought that question to the 6th grade math teachers. First of all, Common Core has not changed our instructional approach in this district. Common Core maybe caught a lot of other states up to where we are in a lot of states in Massachusetts. We've been teaching different approaches. We still teach all of the traditional algorithms, especially at the middle school. So the 6th grade question, where your child hasn't learned the traditional algorithms, I would say, have you spoken to the teachers? Because the teachers could not believe that was suggested, because they teach all of the traditional algorithms. For the last 15 years, we've been teaching everyday math, which is not teaching traditional pathways and to solving a problem, but it teaches multiple pathways, because our challenge is to educate all students, and students learn in different ways. And that's a change. That's changed in the last few years, where we now have to challenge all of our students to reach the same standards. So we teach all of those traditional algorithms in our classrooms, the long division. These are viral things that are going on. We've all seen them. We've all seen the letters from the teacher, my job has changed and they've quit, and the Louis C.K.'s out there talking about Common Core. We've all seen these things. Talk to the teachers in North Reading. They'll tell you that the Common Core is rigorous, that it's challenging to our students. But they're not going to say it's dumbed down. They're not going to say it's too hard. They're going to say we're up for this challenge and we're ready for it. So thank you.
Doctor. If you can indulge me just 1 second, man. I see Senator Tara's come in. Senator, State Senator Bruce Tara's here, and I think he was here for Coach Carey's award. Senator Tara's the Senate Minority Leader. Do you want to come up and say a few words? We'll just interrupt this for a couple of minutes so that I don't want you.
Well, I actually understand that Coach Carey has left the building.
He has.
Mr. Chairman, I do appreciate the
Thank you, sir.
recognition, and I would just publicly offer my thanks and congratulations to the coach for a remarkable tenure of service, 49 years of coaching, 47 years as a head coach. I would suggest that perhaps as we congratulate him on his retirement, we should also be recruiting him on behalf of the Red Sox. We sorely need his leadership. But I do think it's important, and I will be asking him to come to the State House to receive the resolutions that the Senate voted on unanimously and adopted in his honor. But I would be remiss if I were here in this public forum in front of a group of people who clearly care very passionately about education and about public education, not to offer my thanks and congratulations to someone who has represented the very best of that kind of public service in which somebody invests their time and their talent in the future of our youth, by helping them understand the importance of working as a team, of being respectful in competition, and going out and giving it your all for something that you believe in doing, and being part of something that's greater than yourself. And I think for all of those things, we owe Coach Carey a tremendous debt of gratitude. And again, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to be able to say that here and to show you all the Senate actually acted unanimously.
Unanimously. Well, I have this opportunity. I just want to say both Senator Tarr and Representative Jones are tremendous supporters of North Reading, tremendous supporters of North Reading education, and they were instrumental, absolutely instrumental, in the high school, middle school building project. So I want to thank Senator Tarr on behalf of everybody. On that.
Mr. Chairman, and let me just reciprocate, first of all, in saying it's a real honor to work with my colleague, the House Minority Leader, but it's also an honor to work with a town that has the ability to come together and work as a team. And speaking of the coach, I think this community led by example in trying to move that project forward, whether it be the building committee, the school committee, the board of selectmen, and ultimately that was reflected in the ability of the leaders of the community to bring forward the commission, the commitment of town meeting. And we all know what a difficult challenge that can be. And the fact is, you all led by example, and as a result, we have that project to be thankful for, and it was truly an honor to be part of it.
Thank you, Senator.
I'm going to stick around for just a little bit with your indulgence and
Thank
listen
you.
to some of the present discussion, but I do appreciate, truly appreciate the opportunity to say thanks to Frank Perry. Even though he's not here, I'll get a chance to do that later, and while he's in Boston, I am going to see if I can get him to take a walk over to Fenway
Park.
and impart some of that knowledge, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll resume. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Hi. My name is Samantha Miller. I live at 68 North Street, and I have a child in the middle school and a child in the 3rd grade. There appear to be a number of issues that are of concern to everybody. There is the Common Core issue that's been brought up, and whether North Reading should adopt PARC in 2014-2015. These are two very separate issues. I understand that. I am here only to address whether we should adopt PARC in 11 weeks, the start of the new school year, and no, we should not. We are not technologically ready. At this time, 4 out of 5 of the North Reading schools would be taking PARC with paper and pencil. How is that a proper assessment of the test? The only positive reason to move to PARC now that I have heard is that students need more exposure to technology. I couldn't agree more, and I think this is a great goal. However, if we are not ready with the tools in the school, why are we moving so quickly to a technology-based testing program? We should first be focusing on getting the technology to the students to teach them. Then we can focus on getting the tests to assess them on the technology. My son has had a smartboard for 1 out of the 4 years he has been in school, and he has never had access to iPads in the classroom for teaching. If you are so concerned about moving toward technology, please get it to the students first. Are we financially ready? As I stated before, because of our current status with broadband and actual equipment, only 4 out of 5 of our schools will be taking this technology-based test with paper and pencil. Mr. Daly said the school department needs to purchase a lot more devices if the students in all 5 schools have to take the exam at once. Where is that money coming from? Is the state buying the Chromebooks? We've been to the well, we've had the overrides, the townspeople do not have the money. The schools do not have the money. And quite frankly, if we do have the money, why aren't we spending it on getting the students training on technology instead of assessed on technology? We're putting the cart before the horse. Teach them the technology first, and then we can discuss assessing them on it. And my last thought is, where is the rush? Why are we rushing? Dr. Daly, I apologize, said Park will either be adopted by the state, another exam will take its place, or the MCAS will be completely overhauled. That means there's a 2/3 chance that Park will not be the test the students take in a year or 2. So why are we making the expenditure? Why are we rushing into this? Can we please just pause for a year and then continue this conversation?
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Muller.
So just to address a couple of things, because they're very good points. Park is not, it eventually is on computers, but the test will be different. There are types of assessments and types of questions that they cannot ask currently with the current style of MCAS questions. They're actually working at the state level right now. They're rewriting MCAS so that it is exactly like the Park paper and pencil test. So even if it's a paper pencil test, it's going to have different questions. An example of that is, and I've shown this in previous presentations, instead of asking one question where students answer with multiple choice, there's a part A, a part B, and a part C for mathematics. For English language arts, there are, instead of right now where students are reading a passage and answering questions or doing a long composition, students are reading 2 passages. If it's on a computer, they're reading 2 passages and watching a video. If they're doing it on paper, they're reading 3 passages or something to that effect. They're reading about more science texts, informational texts, history texts, as well as just literature texts, all of these things. So these are all components of what is a part of the Park test. It's not a part of what MCAS is. But it's clear to, there's some confusion about the 2/3. I just want to be clear. Next year, they're either going with Park or they're going with new MCAS. And new MCAS might be Park and they just put a new stamp on it. They've said that to us. They might take the computer engine from Park and use that. So this is what's happening. This is, again, our estimation, this is what's coming. But I don't think that it necessarily needs to translate into computers too quickly. They've said to us that they're guaranteeing 2 years of paper-based testing. Something we might want to say is, exactly for the reasons you said, we need more time to get the students ready on devices before the test goes to devices. This is the kind of conversation that we want to be a part of. And finally, about the cost of the devices, we're talking about using the measures we already have through our cycle of, we're going to be buying technology over the next 10 years, 15 years, no matter what. This is what's happening. We're not talking about going to the public for this. This is about, we already have our processes in place to keep technology moving. And there is a lot of talk at the state level. They have not purchased technology devices for districts since, I believe, 1995 or 99, around that time. It's been quite a long time since they've purchased devices for schools, and there's a lot of talk of buying more devices for schools from the state level. Unfortunately, sometimes it's something like this that helps drive that funding through the political arena. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bailey. Yes, ma'am. We know you.
You know me, you know me. She delivered
State your
on
name
her-
anyway, though.
She brought all
I'm
these
Lena
people.
Simone, and I am at 7 Deerfield Place. Thank you so much for indulging me again to speak with you. I apologize for any redundancy I've tried to cut as I'm hearing people speak about things.
That's good.
I tried. I'm going to start with a few quotes. My first quote: I think the argument has been made that Massachusetts outperforms students in every other state. Massachusetts 4th and 8th graders perform right up there with some of the top tier countries. I would argue that there are a lot of kids in Massachusetts getting a world-class education. Massachusetts standards, MCAS, are often held up as a benchmark. Massachusetts standards are often cited as top-notch as aiming higher as well done. Now, those might be statements that you would think would be coming from someone like me who doesn't want to go towards Park. Those statements were actually made in 2009 by none other than Mitchell Chester, who is our Commissioner of DESE. Mitchell Chester is also the chairman of the board of the Park Consortium, which started with 23 states and is now down to 15, 9 firmly committed, 6 still undecided. One of those states, Tennessee, just dropped out today. So, getting back to my main point, the financial portion, and I know we've talked about it, so I'm going to make it very, very short. There was a Boston Globe article from June 14th that states about 2/3 of Massachusetts schools face a major technological challenge. They lack enough computers, other equipment, or broadband capacity to test large numbers of students online simultaneously, according to a statewide Department of Elementary and Secondary Education survey. Thomas Scott, the executive director of the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents, stated, quote, "There's no way we can ramp up to that extent over the next several years." Now, Dr. Daly had talked about economies of scale, but if the consortium was 23 states and now we're down to 15 with 6 still uncommitted, you're still talking about money. If we're talking about 2/3 of cities and towns in Massachusetts that lack the technology, we're still talking about more money that the state has to find somewhere. And back in the meeting of June 9th, our school committee meeting, Mr. Bowers also said, I don't know where the money's going to come from. So there will have to be some expenditures.
He always says that.
I know.
Always says that.
That's why I like him. But that is a very valid point. Even if we do take the paper and pencil version, let's say we take the paper and pencil version for 2 years. After those 2 years, we will have to pay for the paper and pencil version. It is $3 to $4 more money because of shipping and all of that. There's no guarantee that the state's going to say, okay, you're not ready, here's the paper and pencil version for free, when maybe other communities are feeling the same way. So that is a big deal for us. North Reading will be affected no matter what anyone says. I just simply do not hold the belief that North Reading won't be affected financially. The other thing that I want to speak about is student data concerns, and Dr. Daly talked about it a little bit. I can't speak for Measured Progress, the company that holds MCAS data, but the flaw in that argument is that Pearson is the company that will hold some of our student data. And Pearson is a huge company that owns many other companies. Pearson has, unfortunately for them, been involved in several lawsuits over the last few years. The most recent one was stated that Pearson used its nonprofit foundation to make millions of dollars for its corporation. The Attorney General of New York sued Pearson in the amount of $7 million. It was recently settled. In 2010, Florida test scores were delayed for more than 1 month, and Pearson agreed to pay $15 million in fines to them. In 2009, 2010, Wyoming sued Pearson because their testing program failed, and Pearson was ordered to pay $9.5 million for, quote, a complete default of contract. And there's right now an active lawsuit with New Mexico over unfair bidding process. Pearson got the contract. And a company named AIR is suing over that. I want to talk about the inevitability factor that everyone's talked about already. Again, Mitchell Chester himself has said that we don't know yet. Whether what he says behind closed doors, I don't know, but that's what I know now. The backlash against Park is growing, as evidenced by the list that Mrs. Kopke said, as well as the ones that we're seeing every day out in the news. One of the things that I want to mention is that I actually called the Department of Secondary and Elementary Education, and I wanted to know which towns had chosen Park over MCAS. And I was told that that wasn't public information and that they would let me know after June 30th. So that to me is a problem, and it wasn't just me. Several of my friends also called and got the same answer. Now, regarding inevitability, excuse me, I wonder where the United States would be if our colonists accepted that King George's control was inevitable. You know, you know, it may have appeared to be a daunting task for them, but they chose the right path and they persevered. Finally, I'd like to mention a few quotes that I heard when I looked at the video from our November 25th school committee meeting. Our kids are successful. They are achieving in their lives. There are other factors, such as socioeconomic factors, that we cannot change. And if they can show me that North Reading students are really struggling when they go to college, show me that. No one has shown me that. And those were quotes from our own school committee members. So thank you. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Lane is absolutely right. The DESC refuses to release the towns, but I and about 4 other school committee members have been compiling a list. And as of yesterday at 9:53 p.m., there were 44 park districts and 45 MCAS districts. And if anybody wants to take at that list, I have it here. But, you know, and it's a mix of urban and rural districts choosing either park or MCAS for a lot of different reasons.
Thank you.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Janine Largent. I live at 11 Hillside Road, and I have 2 daughters of middle school age, so thank you for indulging me. And I wanted to start, Dr. Daly, by saying I'm very frustrated by these comments always about competing in a global economy or global world. I don't know one time in history where we haven't competed in a global economy or a global world. So anyway, currently there is a national grassroots movement in objection to the high-stakes park test. The debate over park is due to the understanding that it is the linchpin to Common Core. Without these tests, there can be no data mining, no value-added measure evaluation of teachers, and no way to enforce the strict, copywritten, untested Common Core standards. Massachusetts education standards were not broken. In fact, Massachusetts students not only were competitive nationally, but globally as well. Of course, there are areas here, as in other states, where failure rates are unacceptably high, and we need to address that problem. But first, we need to recognize that it is a social problem and not a standards problem. We accepted Common Core not because it was superior, but because Common Core was the price to be paid to receiving federal funds.
we didn't get any money. We were not a Race to the Top district. We did not get any money
Well,
for choosing Common Core.
Massachusetts-wise,
Right, but we
Yes.
did not get any money in
well,
this district.
but,
We rejected Race to the Top.
well, I
unanimously.
appreciate that, but Massachusetts-wise, this is and I am making a link directly to Park and Common Core, because I have a problem with the entire Common Core standards, and I see Park as killing Park as the first step to killing Common Core. There'll be no, I won't mince words on that. Anyway, ironically, the cost of implementing Common Core will mitigate any funds we received to surrender our previous standards. Many of us are just beginning to follow the threads that led to Common Core, and whatever other arguments there are against them, and there are many, their creation and dissemination were decidedly undemocratic. David Coleman, the architect of Common Core, has never taught a class of his own, and the wealthy capitalists, most prominently Bill Gates, who bankrolled the creation and dissemination of the standards, are poised to profit from their implementation. Neither Mr. Gates nor Mr. Coleman has the ultimate formula for curriculum or pedagogy. It is quite concerning that a small group of individuals with a single narrow view were able to create an education system that is too big to fail. Superintendent Willis, in her argument for Park, states that the essay style of Park is superior to the multiple choice style of MCAS. The essays of Park are corrected by computer. The computer can't tell if the student is actually making an articulate point or simply speaking grammatically correct gibberish. North Reading has a very important decision to make tonight, one that won't just affect the education of students in the coming year, but generations of future students, and I hope we make the right choice.
Thank you, Ms. Lodge. That's That's just your cast that you're holding up, right? Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else wants to be heard? Come on up.
I forgot to get my address last time. I'm John Britt from 2 Dogwood Lane. No, I have one more
Yes, Mr. Watt, go
question.
ahead.
I have one more question, very short, no soapboxing. My understanding is that the same organization / company that owns the park system also has rights to the SAT system and will be thusly adjusting the SAT so that the relative measure of how well students are doing will be lost in the adjustment of that test. Is that
I don't know,
correct?
anyone have any information on that?
Yes.
It's already been rewritten anyway.
Yeah, we have a new SAT.
Yes, the same architect,
That's a GED.
David Coleman, is now redoing the SATs as well.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Elizabeth Ryan, I'm on Williams Road. I'm a parent of a 3rd grader and 5th grader.
You know, without the microphone, the TV probably can't hear you, so if you could just come up, thanks.
Don't.
There she is, everybody, there she is.
Dr. Daly, when you were speaking at the beginning, you talked about there really weren't going to be much financial impact on our current budget, but you did mention time and resources. I was wondering if you could go into a little more detail. What are we talking about? Is it, are teachers losing out on professional development hours because they're now going to be spending time here? And then, if you could also talk about, since I'm a parent at the batch, do you have any mitigation plan? Because my daughter will be going into 3rd grade, which is the curriculum for computers is Type to Learn. There's now 8 weeks that she can't get into the computer lab. If we do that, how do you plan to make up that curriculum for classroom access to computers, for instructional time? If you could do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. What was the I'm sorry, the first point was about
The resources, time.
time and resources, absolutely, yes. With change, there's loss. There's always, with change, there's loss. There's going to be time devoted to training teachers about doing a new assessment. That's going to happen no matter what, when something changes. Our tech team, like I said, we gave a lot of our time to learn this, but for the better, because as we scale this up, I now have a team of 5 people that really know how to do this and to scale it up in different buildings. And again, I agree, the commissioner has come out many times and said, it's not a done deal, it's not a done. We're reading, again, the administrators that are putting a lot of time, I've spent the last 4 years of my life going to these meetings and hearing this seems to be what's coming, and we're suggesting this is what's best for us to prepare. So we believe that the best interest of our schools and our tech team to really take that time, and our teachers to learn this. Some of the things that need to learn, when I hear that students are going to have to type, that students are going to have to use electronic devices, this is what students are going to have to do in the world. And so I see that having to do this for a test is just, that's not why they're doing it. Again, we're using our devices all the time in school to prepare for what they're going to be doing for the rest of their lives. The testing is authentic in that way. As far as the question about the technology, the actual technology.
Curriculum.
How do you adjust the curriculum?
Right. So I did address this a little bit last time. So we need to think about a lab in a different way. And this is part of what we did this year when we really pushed the limits of testing. We tested outside the lab, we tested in the lab. We concluded that testing in the lab in a wired environment was the best way to go. And so the idea is, and this is the idea in our new high school, the idea of a computer lab is really a 20th century idea. I know this cliche of 21st century, but it's really, that's what we were told, and we do understand that. The idea is that you're pushing devices into classrooms, so every classroom becomes a computer lab. The idea of signing out and going to the computer lab is really what's not there. So the testing lab now, the wired lab, becomes your testing area during that period of testing, and every classroom, our technology teachers, we're trying to get funding to have more technology teachers, but we currently have paraprofessionals in the classroom. They will be co-teaching with the teachers in the classroom using devices that we're going to buy to push into classrooms. So it's not like we're not doing technology learning during that time. We're pushing into those rooms. We're developing, our teachers, our digital learning specialists have spent this year working on how are we going to start doing digital research. We started with kindergarten. We started with K-2. We developed digital research projects where students are researching databases, where they're starting to type and use technology to compose their thoughts and their ideas orally through pictures, because we're trying to embed that in K, 1, 2, so by the time they get to 3, the typing is the natural progression. If you look at the Common Core standards, that is the natural progression so that they are getting to that stage by that time. And our curriculum needs to get there. We need to start building opportunities for students to be typing and testing in those areas.
And just ask to be recognized. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm kind of getting the impression that if Common Core and Park are not instituted, that somehow we're going back to slate tablets or something, and technology.
Yeah,
is
Common
not
Core is
exist.
instituted.
Yeah, Common Core has been instituted for several years now.
And slate's expensive.
And right. So-
Yes.
No,
that's
but
right.
Common Core, one of the good things about Common Core is it has digital standards embedded right in it. So teachers, it's not an option for a teacher to say, I'm not going to teach using technology. We owe it to our kids to teach them using technology. It's built right into Common Core. Okay? And if we undid Common Core, if this really were, if this vote tonight was the start of a spiral backwards, we've spent the last 4 years leading it. And again, if you ask the teachers in the district and you talk about, and you go and you actually look at the standards, don't read what's on, get out the standards and read the standards. I hear there's no creativity in the standards. Massachusetts took Common Core and added to it. Standard 3A in English Language Arts. Students have to write poems. They have to. It's right in there. It's creative. This is in there. Look at the actual standards. Talk to the actual teachers. Common Core is not a bad thing. So get out there and look.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, can I get back to the technology question?
Oh, you've already had an opportunity. Just give me
Go ahead.
another chance over here. Yes, come on up. And then we'll get to you. And I want to kind of move this along if we could. Yes, ma'am. Come on up to the microphone. They can't hear you on the TV unless you do.
I'm Barbara Jones, 56 Old Andover, and I am not for Park because we're not ready for it. I have a 6th grader. My 6th grader is really smart, but he didn't have technology in his classroom until 5th grade. And that technology wasn't purchased by the school department, it was purchased by the PA. A lot of it was by the PA, which was another way of
Seriously, we appreciate everything the PAs do for us, too. They
And
do a
that's
lot.
wonderful, but that money is still coming from us, the parents and the townsfolk, the taxpayers. We're paying our property taxes to fund the school in the town. And then because we want our children to have the technology that the budgets don't allow, we're again paying so that our children have the technology, but that's also coming out of our pockets. So I have a 6th grader. I have a really smart 6th grader. My smart 6th grader can barely type with 2 fingers. So if he has to write an essay next year for Park, and it has to be typed, which since he's in 6th grade, I guess it won't this year, it's going to take him 12 hours just to type what's in his brain because he lacks typing, because typing's not taught, or if it is, it's not taught effectively. I think that we need to ramp our children up on technology, have them learn the skills before we start making the testing require those skills.
Okay.
Because my smart kid who tests very well with MCAS is going to fail miserably on a typed test, even though he would like
Okay,
to
thank you. I'm going to let
merge-
Dr. Daly respond,
Okay.
and then I'm going to come over here to
And I
this gentleman.
absolutely agree. And again, every district in this Commonwealth takes PTO fundings, local donations, and
We
state
appreciate
funding.
it.
I mean, we're so appreciative of that, and we couldn't do it without it. As far as again, I see this vote again tonight as wanting to be involved in that conversation. A good point was raised about a cost. I sit in the front row of these meetings and I say, I heard a long time ago that you're going to start charging us after a couple of years for these paper and pencil tests. Those are the kind of things we need to be fighting against, because I agree. If we're not ready to scale up to computer-based testing in every school, we need to keep with the paper and pencil, and we need to keep that cost down at the state level. And these are the conversations we want to be involved in, because I agree. We need to do this slowly, and if we're not ready, we need to get there. We need to get kids comfortable to type, because we don't want that to be a deciding factor. We all are in agreement on that. That's why I think we go with Park, so that we're in that conversation for next year. If we sit it out a year, just remember, if we sit it out a year, they're going to hand us a test in a year, and we're not going to be involved in that debate. If you vote tonight to go with MCAS or to go with Park, if we vote to go with MCAS, we're going to do well. I'm going to sneak into meetings if I'm not invited to them, and I know that our administrators are going to keep informed, and we're going to be prepared. We're going to do everything in this community to be prepared. Again, our administrative council is in consensus that the best thing for us is to do this. But like we said, half the districts in the state are choosing a different way. We're going to do well in North Reading no matter what. So,
Thank you, Pat. Yes, sir. And I'm, two more after this gentleman, and then we want to get some comments from the committee and move on. Sir, okay.
My name is Dane Kopke, also known as Mr. Julie Kopke,
Mr.
5 Elvira Road. Point of information.
You know you're on TV.
I know. But Dr. Daly over here,
used against him.
he's made 2 points tonight about teachers have said this. Teachers have said that they're okay with this. Teachers are going forward with this. Is there any teacher representative here or union representative who's going to make your statement on that? Are you going to say that? Okay. Well, I have a hard time when somebody's representing, especially as an administrator, as we know, there's always a teacher-administrator divide, and sometimes this happens, but he's representing a statement of a person of a group that's not here and not legally representative, so I don't take that as a point of information for my argument. Okay, great. So
Well,
we'll
again,
have that done.
Yeah, again, Patrick works very closely in his position, in his title, with the staff and the faculty, so.
All right. No, I'm not saying that he's not friendly with them and talk to them.
It's not a question of being friendly, it's a question of collaborating with them, or working with them.
Absolutely.
And again, I'm sure there are some teachers that probably are not in favor, but we're not taking a referendum.
And I don't mind his points, whatever,
Okay.
but just don't back up by saying the teachers are saying everything when the teachers aren't here, and there's not a representative
Well,
teacher.
okay,
I mean,
we'll
that's another point.
agree to disagree, go ahead.
The second point of what I want to talk about is when you're making a decision as a school committee, any decision you're making, it's about why to do something, right? We're moving forward because a decision needs to be made. And the reason is why. One thing you hear a lot to do is, well, why not? Test is coming anyway. We've got paper and pencil. We're only doing a pilot. Why not? And I don't think for our schools to be part of a clinical trial, which is the way I look at this. When a company puts a drug out, or it's going to put a drug out, they go, okay, we're going to put a drug out, but we're going to do a clinical trial first. Who's in most need of this drug or test we're coming out with? And it could be integrated school systems in other states that aren't ready. We've been ready. Massachusetts is leaders. We have led. We have led down the state level, whatever. We've developed the MCAS test, which has rolled into other things. We're the standard. Why do we need to be pulled somewhere? We're the pushers. We're the people that push forward and be able to do things for the state and do things forward. Why do we have to be lemmings? We are leaders. And at the end of the day, when somebody says we have to do something, that's fine. I know the way mandates works. There's no mandate going on right now. I know at some point, maybe next year, maybe we're a year from now, the mandates happen. But guess what? We've got a new superintendent who started a year after now. We've got a new high school. We've got a middle school renovated. Infrastructure's a little bit better. Dr. Daly has more time to invest in technology, not have bins of Chromebooks, as I heard a few years ago. We don't need a rush for this. Just because we have another paper and pencil to be able to do it. There's no read. The inevitability's not there. There's no mandate there. And now our kids are now part of a clinical trial. I think we wait until the drug has to be put in our mouths to do it. We are leaders at this point in the Olympics.
Thank you, Mr. Cogby. I find your comments most interesting because you talked about being leaders, and we're leaders, and why be followers, and why be lemmings. I think if you would ask Dr. Daly, I think he'd get up here and argue we are leaders, and that's why we're going. That's why he's recommending that we take this route. He wants to be a leader. He's looking not to maintain the status quo. He's looking to accept the challenge and seize the opportunity to move forward and be a leader in this area. I'm speaking just, again, I'm paraphrasing where I think he's coming from. I'm going to wait to make my vote when the time comes tonight. Now, look, I just want to move this. I know you want to get your hand up there. And there was one gentleman over here.
Feel free.
Okay, you two guys right here, you, then you, and then we're going to come back to you, and we're going to wrap it up. Okay, you sure?
I promise.
You better, all right, okay. Yes, sir, come on up. Geez, we tried to turn the heat up like Red Auerbach used to do in Boston Garden.
How you doing? I'm Rex Whitmore. I have 2 kids in the Massachusetts school system. One in Minuteman, one here in North Reading. It's good to see all these people involved now. Obviously, a couple weeks ago, there wasn't that much involvement. I think the biggest issue right now is a lot of people are very uneducated about this issue altogether. Park, Common Core, everything that comes along with it.
That's a good point.
There's a big lagging learning experience coming along with this. Which brings up the big point of why are we being forced to do it? Why is it being pushed by the federal government upon state governments and local governments to push this along further? I, for one, Simone, she brought up a good point. There's a lot of people in our area that are questioning this as we speak right now, as we are. And they have reservations. And I don't know how to speak of it any further, that I think that we need to become more educated with what's going on here before we can move forward with this.
Thank you,
I, for
sir.
one, right now, am against Park. I hope you guys vote that way. I think we can wait the year.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, little did I know that I was coming to see Frank Carey. I have two sons. My name is Vicky Kavieska. I live at 5 Apple Tree Lane. I have two children at the batch, both in 5th grade. One of them is on an IEP and one is not. So, hello, Mr. Bernard. I have a long, lengthy history of parents in the education system. My father was a teacher at Saugus High School and actually was a mentor to Mr. Bernard.
He did a good job.
Unfortunately, he never fulfilled what he was supposed to do. He died at a fairly young age. But I'm very well aware of all the politics that surround various schools. And I had the opportunity to attend a meeting at the middle school for my IEP, my children on an IEP. Now, my most concern is my child who's not on an IEP. He actually got to participate in the pilot program for the math. Now, I'm hearing, hey, great, we were ready, we were prepared. You know what happens when you have a child who has anxiety? And I mean a lot of it. And you're being told that he has to do this. Now, I work, I travel. I was away on a business trip when they took that test in April, the practice test. What was interesting is I got a phone call in the middle of one of my presentations. I had to do 10 in 2 days. So I got a call not only from the teacher, but also from my child, in tears. He took the test. Halfway through it, it blocked. It blurred. It flailed. It did whatever. It blanked. Got the dreaded blue screen. Great. They did a great job fixing it. When he went to take the final, it was okay. But I had to listen to 2 days for a child crying. He's 11 years old. Why are we in a rush to do this? I'm hearing stories of how we're not ready. Why don't we teach them how to type? Why don't we teach them this? My other child who's on an IEP, yes, I'm hearing, okay, great, we're going to a computer-based program, but for the next 4 years, we may be doing paper-based. Well, you know what? Take the time. Take the year. Think about it. No need to rush it. Why? That's my opinion. I've actually listened to a great number of points here, and I'm not against it. I think we just need to take the time and think about it. Yes, okay, let's adopt it. Let's participate. You know what? I work for a software company. We put out releases every day. You know what? 90% of our clients don't want to take it. You know what? They don't want to be the ones that have the issues. They don't want to be the ones that say, oh, okay, they participate, they give me a laundry list of items. All right, maybe I'll fix it. But you know what? When you get it from all these communities, who's to say that you're going to be the ones that have the right path? So my only concern, and I hope that you vote against it, at least for a year, delay it. Do not vote to put this out on these children for many reasons. Technology, anxiety. I mean, let's think about the kids, please. My opinion.
Thank you. And then, as soon as you're done, I'm going to ask the super.
Teacher wanted to talk.
Oh, yes,
Me or her?
little
Me or her,
schools.
okay, okay, never mind.
Okay, no, come on up and then we'll hear from her last.
I just wanted to go back to the point about the technology and what the kids are missing and why we can't teach the kids the technology first. If you're going to take these technology people, the tech people, and bring them to the batch for 8 weeks, what happens to the little school? What happens to the hood school where my child has not had a smart board, only had it once in 4 years, does not have access to iPads? When that 1 year that it's a test for everybody else, that's his 4th grade year gone for technology. I want you to teach him technology. That 1 year for us is a whole year gone for him that he can't get back. Please teach them technology before you test them on it. That's my only request. Please teach them first, and then let's go ahead with it. But can we wait?
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of things quickly, just to address. When I say all hands on deck, I'm saying our technicians, not the digital learning specialists. So you're still going to have the technology teachers in those schools. I'm talking about the people that are doing the behind the scenes. What's that? Next year? Well, but again, I'm talking about the technicians, the digital learning specialists there. And again, I would love to see everybody out here next year when we're voting in our 2 new digital learning specialists, because we're trying, that's part of NRPS 2016, didn't get voted in this year. We're trying to add those 2 positions moving forward, okay? I had a question here just about performance advantages to online tests over paper and pencil? Are we concerned about test scores? Can you address this or at a later date? The test scores, there's going to be, I mean, this is part of why it's a held harmless year. I think there are some questions out there with some of the differences with taking a new test. This is why, again, school and district scores are held harmless in 2014-15. And that's part of that decision is that, you know, we are, again, we're taking a little bit of a risk next year to try this out, to learn, to figure out we learned so much from that first trial that we gave direct feedback that they improved for the second. We want this to be the best test it can be in 2015-16. That's what we're looking at. We don't. I would never say put a pill in my mouth. I want to be out there making sure that it's the right test for our kids. Before I want to see it, I want to breathe it, I want to look at it, I want to study it, I want to give my feedback, and I want to make it the best it can be. I do not want it handed to me. But that's the debate, and I think you can come down to different sides of it.
Thank you. All right, ma'am, you a teacher at the little school? Come on up.
I actually wear a lot of hats tonight. I'm a parent of a middle schooler and a high schooler. I'm a union rep for my building. I'm a science leader for my building and a first grade teacher. So I came tonight because I was very curious about the conversation. And that gentleman asked about teachers being here. Patrick did come to every school in town with Mark Organi, our union president. They came together to talk to all the teachers, to get feedback from the teachers. And I really feel that I'm not speaking for all teachers, I'm just speaking for myself, that the whole piece of the held harmless is really key to me. So I teach first grade. My students are not taking this yet. However, for the digital piece, we are doing a lot of great technology stuff. We have iPads that we can sign out, that we can do a lot of great things happening that I don't think everybody is really digesting right now because a lot of focus is on test. And I get that as a parent. But I think we have to invest in understanding that the school system, that our leaders have worked really, really hard at going to all these meetings. Patrick, you've done a really great job tonight talking about all these different points. I feel that you've really addressed a lot with the parents, and I do hear the concerns. I just hope that people will understand that there's a big picture here, and we have an opportunity to get in on that ground floor and get our voices heard. We've already said things that didn't go well this spring, and they've made adjustments already. And we did the same thing with the science, the National Direct Science Standards that came out. We were part of, with our Science Council, getting to look at all those, and a lot of our feedback has been taken into account for the new standards coming out in 2 years. So we have a chance to get, you know, some of our voices heard from teachers, not just, you know, kids. But
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask the superintendent if for any comments and/or recommendations. I'm going to turn it over to the committee members to state their opinions.
Oh, does the committee still want to talk first, or you want me to talk first?
Why
Okay,
don't you
very
go?
good. I'd like to thank the members of the audience for being here this evening. I always enjoy having parent input. This is a very important topic, and we do appreciate you being here. Massachusetts is ranked the #1 state in this country, and that has not happened by chance. I was a teacher when ed reform was passed in 1993. And Massachusetts took the lead at that time out of all of the states in this country and adopted the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks. In 1994, those frameworks were adopted and disseminated. I was a teacher. I had never worked with standards before. It was the first time in my life that I understood that there was value in clarity, coherence, commonality, and collaboration with my colleagues. That was followed in 1998 by the first MCAS test. And yes, we had to bear the brunt of doing something that was very different that we had never done before. And then we had to take those results and analyze them and make connections between the test that was being administered and these standards that we didn't have for a very long time. But I understood that in the long run, in the big picture, this was what was right for children. And back then, I was a special education teacher. So I understand the challenges that are being put forth tonight about anxiety, about disorders, about children being afraid and wanting to do the best that they can. And I do believe that we learned as MCAS grew, and it went from grades 4, 8, and 10, and the tests were disseminated across multiple grade levels. Yes, there was an evolutionary process. But that's what education is about. if we were still using the same methodologies that were in place 100 years ago, we'd be in a very different place. And I say to you, it's not easy to change. I didn't want to change in 1993, but I did. And I became a curriculum leader. And then I fully understood what needed to take place in order to make systemic change for our students. The curriculum frameworks followed by MCAS provided the foundation, whether you like it or not, for the Common Core state standards. In addition to the Common Core being based on Massachusetts curriculum frameworks, the people that were taking a look at how do we really identify what are those college and career readiness skills and strategies that our students need. So they took a look at the TIMSS, the Third International Math and Science Study, and they took a look at the results of that. They also took a look at PISA, and that's the Program for International Student Assessment. And they took a look at the countries across this world who did really well on those assessments. And then they took a look at the skills and strategies that those students needed to learn in order to be successful now and into the future. And all of that information was taken into consideration when people took a look at the Common Core and created the Common Core. Do I wish more educators had been at the table? Yes, I do. I told you, well, I mentioned it at the last school committee meeting. I wasn't totally sold that we should move from MCAS to PARC because I'm very comfortable with MCAS. I like the way students perform in North Reading on MCAS. But I also have a very strong memory of what took place in 1993 to 1998. And that didn't come without angst and concern for student performance, and how are we going to scale up in terms of our own professional instructional strategies, as well as purchase the materials that were going to be aligned to the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks. Those frameworks are still great, but they measure what we want students to know and be able to do by the end of grade 10. They do not measure whether our students are college and career ready. And that is the focus for the development of Common Core state standards. And they are standards. They're not curriculum, and they're not instruction. Very often we talk about the teaching and being educators as having an art and a science. The standards create the science. We need those standards to have a common understanding of what we want students to know and be able to do. The art is the instruction that takes place in each and every classroom, and the curriculum that is created around those standards, and the materials that we create or we purchase in order to teach that curriculum. Standards are not curriculum. They are simply a set of expectations of what we want students to know and be able to do. And the Common Core state standards are much more rigorous because they now expect for us to teach reading and writing across the content areas. That's not included in the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks, and quite frankly, in the 80s, we worked very hard as curriculum leaders to help our mathematics teachers and social studies teachers and science teachers understand that they also were teachers of reading and writing. And I just want to clarify, I was misquoted earlier this evening. I did not say that the essays of the Common Core were the most challenging part of the changes to the test items. I recognize that that's an area where there needs to be an awful lot more development with our robo-scorers. I read that article too. What I did say was that the test items that will be on the Common Core, the PARC, to test Common Core, have to do with critical thinking skills. If you remember back to Bloom's taxonomy, that is a taxonomy of critical thinking skills that starts with knowledge and comprehension. Most assessments teach knowledge, and our students are very good at regurgitating that knowledge. Really good assessments teach about comprehension. How do our students understand what they've learned, and how can they demonstrate that understanding? What PARC will do will take us to application, analysis, and synthesis. Not only will they have to learn this information in one setting, they will have to take that information and apply it to several other settings using real texts and comparing those texts and drawing conclusions, and then be able to express that using high-level writing skills. So that is different from MCAS. And yes, we have constructed response on MCAS right now. We have some essays that are called open response. We have short answers in math. We have a lot of multiple choice. It's not a bad test. but it's 16 years old. We're not rushing to change MCAS. We've used it for 16 years. But it's time. It's time to start taking a look at what we want for our children as they continue to grow through the school system that is evolving. We wouldn't want our surgeons to use the same strategies that they used 100 years ago. We can't expect schools to do that as well. We need to evolve. Technology is here to stay. And as I quote from a colleague of mine who is a superintendent in Revere, we have a moral imperative to teach technology. And many of you said that tonight. We have a moral imperative because that's what our children are facing. I am not a digital native. I'm a dinosaur. Your children can do so much more on their own with technology than I will ever be able to do. But it's my obligation as your superintendent of schools to make sure that A, they are using technology as a tool, not as a computer class. They're tools just like pencils were back in the day, and that they can use that technology to demonstrate their understanding of concepts in classrooms. That's what Park is asking them to do. And eventually, they will be proficient at that. But just like on the MCAS back in 1994, 98, our students were not proficient with expressing themselves on those standards, and it took time. And now our students remain number one, and they will continue to be number one. I'm not afraid of what's coming. I'm wondering what the fear is, and I understand that we're talking about what's the hurry. There is no hurry. It's been 16 years. It's time to start taking a look at what's ahead for our students. We owe that to them. We owe them that. And I would be not doing my job if I said MCAS, it would be much easier for me to stick with MCAS for 1 year, and I know I'm leaving. That argument was used at the beginning by Julie. And Julie, you made it sound like I do an awful lot on my own, and I don't, but thank you for giving me that credit. I am surrounded by a very talented administrative team. And school committee. And school committee, who also work with very talented educators in the classroom. We are very fortunate. I've worked in other school districts. I'm not patronizing. I don't need to say this. North Reading has an incredible number of talented educators and administrators in this district, and yes, school committee. I'm very proud of the work that has been accomplished, and I'm proud of the work that's going to continue long after I'm gone, because it's not about me. It's about these people that do the work every day, and they do it for your students. And they would never come forward and recommend something that would harm your children. You've trusted me for 4 years to make the right educational decisions. I'm not quite sure what happened to that trust. Because for 4 years, that's been my top priority. That's what I've wanted for your children, and I still want that. So, my recommendation, as an educator and as an educational decision, not a political decision, an educational decision, it is my recommendation as superintendent of schools to participate in year 2 of Park field testing grades 3 through 8 and grade 9 Algebra 1 for the 2014-15 school year.
Thank you, Superintendent Willis. I'm going to ask for comments from the school committee members. I'm going to start with Mr. Webster, who's done an awful lot of work on this.
I think most of you probably watch the school committee every week, and you've memorized all my quotes over the last several years. If you know me, you know that I am anti-state and federal intervention. And if you know me, you know that as little as 6 months ago, I stood here and I was adamantly opposed to Park, and a year ago or 2 years ago, I was adamantly opposed to Common Core. I took it upon myself to educate myself, to look through all the political crap. Yes, political crap out there. One, Common Core wasn't developed by the federal government. Common Core was developed by a consortium and adopted by states. It wasn't forced down our throat. And the Common Core, much of it is based on the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks. That is political BS. I've spent a ton of time on this. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm about 98% sure, and as a former journalist, 98% is good enough for me. It's because it's 40% is good enough for most journalists today. Second thing I want to say is, we have been a fiercely independent school committee. We rejected Race to the Top. We had money put basically on the table. Oh, you got to take Race to the Top. They're going to give you money. We said, no, we don't need that money. We're an excellent school district. We don't need to put things into this district that our students and teachers and administrators don't need. We turned aside money. Whether that's a good decision or a bad decision, I don't know, but I know it kept the federal government and state government out of our hair for a little bit longer. So this committee has not kowtowed to the federal and state government at all. So why was I against Park and MCAS? Excuse me, no, I'm against neither. Why was I against Park and Common Core? Because I was uneducated, in my opinion. I read some of the stories. I said, oh, this is terrible. So I spent time going to DESE presentations. What are they going to say? But I asked a lot of questions there, and Patrick can confirm. I asked a lot of hard questions, and I think they gave me good answers. I know people are saying this isn't a done deal. It's not officially a done deal. But when I hear our education commissioner and when I hear others who are part of the DESE, it says to me that it's a done deal whether they voted on it or not. And I truly believe that we have hired some of the finest administrators in the state to run our school district. Kathleen Willis is probably one of the most sensitive superintendents and administrators I've ever worked with in terms of being concerned about the kids and the students. She has an ear to this community, she has an ear to the school community like no other administrator I've worked with. And you know, you can question that, but I'll just tell you that. I worked with other administrators. We had another superintendent here for 15 years who was an excellent superintendent, but he could be tone deaf at times. Kathy's not tone deaf. In fact, she probably has her hearing aids turned up too high because she probably hears more than she needs to hear. So someone questioned the teachers. When teachers don't like something that's going on in this district, the school committee hears about it. I haven't heard from one teacher. A large number of teachers in this district know me. They know Jerry. They know all the committee members. They know Cliff. But Jerry and I have been in this committee for 10 years for myself, and I believe 13 or 14 for Jerry. 15 years. Sorry, Jerry. We'd hear from the teachers. We haven't heard one thing. And as the teacher that spoke tonight, Patrick and Mark Reganey, who's the head of our teachers union, went around and spoke to teachers at every school. They spent a lot of time on this. The question about technology. That's going to be a question whether we go with Park or whether we go with any other test. MCAS is gone. MCAS is gone. Common Core is here. People keep saying, oh, all these states, there's still 44 states that are Common Core states. The states that are dropping it are afraid because they know they're not going to meet the standards. It's Louisiana. It's Tennessee. It's the states that have some of the worst educational systems in this country, and they know they can't meet Common Core standards. And that's why they're dropping it. Because they're going to look foolish. Because their kids are going to come out on the bottom and they're going to say, wow, we really have a lot of work to do here. So I know I'm going off on a rant here, but I do want to say a few other things. I'm surprised. I've heard many comments tonight about our lack of technology education. We visit the schools every year, and we have teachers coming in from many grades showing us all the technology projects they're doing. So I was kind of surprised to hear that, and maybe Patrick can address that at one point, because as a committee member, I felt we were doing a pretty good job with education, given the limited resources we had, and a lot of it is thanks to the PTAs and PTOs who contribute. So the bottom line is, I was a huge skeptic. I've spent 6 months educating myself on this. I feel extremely confident in our superintendent and our administrative council and our teachers, and I will be supporting Park tonight.
Sarah Ketty.
You're still getting that wrong. I was just making a joke.
Okay.
First, I just want to say how grateful I am that so many parents have come out. I'm not a parent, so I like to hear from people, and I rarely get constituent feedback because of that. So I've been listening to this debate online, here, in the community for a long time. I'm also, it's not unknown to people, I'm a Republican, so I hear a lot of anti-Common Core, a lot of comments about that in my Facebook feed, which is all very fascinating and interesting. But when I make decisions about what happens in North Reading, and as a member of this team, and I can say team because the school committee is exceptional across the state in terms of our ability to work together, I think about what our real job is, and our job is to make sure our students get the education they deserve and they need, the one that prepares them to be the most successful when they get out in the world. And I hate that global statement too, it drives me crazy. It's sort of like, if they want to go and be a painter, fine. They're not going to be digital. Maybe they'll just go out and, become whatever they want to be. But this is all about implementing a test that somebody came up with that is now accepted, and we should challenge it. We should. I think the outcry that I've heard has been really healthy and very helpful to me, because I hated standardized tests. I got right out before MCAS came in, and I remember taking tests myself. I'm sure many of you do. And it's anxiety provoking. It has nothing to do with what I know as a person. And I got out in the world and I did just fine. I went to, Wellesley, Yale, and BU, not too bad. And I got under 1,000 on my SAT. And I've said that out loud on television. It's super. And I will say that I'm exhausted about all the things that the state is asking us to do. We always talk about mandates, and it just feels like this is happening too fast, because it is happening too fast. And there's so many different political pressures, it's just mind-numbing. What it comes down to for me is the students and how they feel. I actually only see one student, Matthew, in the audience. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. And I wonder how they feel about taking tests, and I know how much they put into it, and they put into being excellent all the time. And that's what I'm most worried about, our students who feel the pressure to be excellent all the time, excellent at taking tests, excellent at using digital tablets, of being the best of everything. I wrote my dissertation on anti-bullying, the mandate in Massachusetts, and the top thing I heard from parents, administrators, chief of police, and oh God, I interviewed so many people I can't even count. They said the biggest issue facing our students is the stress they feel. And to me, stress is just, it's caused by so many different things. This is a test. I hate the fact that Commissioner Chester is completely, in my opinion, unethically part of the board of Park and is pushing this. I hate that. I absolutely hate it. I think it's just terrible. And I don't think the technology is really the thing either, because our kids are pretty savvy with technology, and if they can't get it, we can teach them how to do that. And I would love to have tons of money for all the technology in the world, but I always go back to that student who doesn't care about technology. And my real job in life is director of technology. That's what I did. So I know, how hard it is to teach people things. I want the focus to be on the content of what we teach our children, and not the test. And I can't even believe I'm saying this, because last week I thought I was going with Park, but I'm not tonight, because I just don't think we need to, and I don't think either test matters, frankly.
Thank you.
Let me see, where do I start? I hate standardized tests. I think that they do a great disservice to all of the people who take them. Unfortunately, they're a fact of life. That's the way we look at the differences between different students. I happen to have 3 children and 3 grandchildren, and I can tell you that my son, who never tested very well on his SATs, managed to come out with a PhD from Caltech. So, standardized tests don't really mean that much in the big picture. But they are an inevitable thing, and MCAS or Park, we're going to have them one way or another. Mel has talked about this conversation on the MASC listserv. Mel is a major feature on there. I think he has the highest number of posts on it in the last month.
Yeah.
About 75% of the posts, actually.
No, that's not.
He's actually talking to himself on this subject.
He replies to himself.
It's
Just so you know, there's a listserv that school committee members talk about
Everything.
important issues facing the state. So I've been pretty active on that the last few months, because it's been MCAS and Park that have been that's been the big issue. That's what.
And there's been a lot of, question back and forth, pros and cons, and the districts that have selected Park so far, and the ones that have selected MCAS, look like they're the same general scheme. You have some wealthier communities, some wealthier communities, some poorer communities, some larger cities, some larger cities. It's about evenly split. for all sorts of different reasons that people have picked one or the other. And we've heard a lot of it here tonight about those same kind of things that have driven those. To me, it really doesn't matter which one we get, whether we take MCAS or Park. MCAS is going to be the same as Park in a year or so. That's what's happening. It's going to be morphed. So we might as well get on and get about it. I don't think it's going to hurt our kids at all. Their education is going to be the same. They're going to be educated the same. The testing is different, that's all. And the testing is, in my view, incidental. That's for somebody else's concern. The
Whose
testing
concern?
isn't what we're really worried about. It's what they get educated in. I'm the oldest person in the room, and the one thing I can absolutely assure you, that the only constant in all of our lives is change. And this one's coming at us. We might as well get on the bandwagon and move forward, because going backward doesn't count.
Thank you, Cliff. Ms. Imbriano, if you choose. No, you don't.
Some of the things that I've been hearing is anxiety. My heart rate is like 150 right now because I'm just very nervous because I don't talk in public often. So, but taking tests prepare you for anxiety. So whether you have to type on a computer, and I type with 2 fingers, or whether you have to write, and I write extremely slow, you're going to have to get over that fear of taking the test. My daughter recently graduated high school, and she bought so many books on how to prepare to take for a test. She found out that there was places you could go and be taught how to take the test. There's strategies on trying to figure out the trend in the multiple choice, so you don't even have to read the question. You can just figure out what the trend is and do it. So I mean, there's so many ways of getting around tests that if it's not a test that causes you to think and analyze and bear with me, synthesize, thank you, then it's, it's a test that you can kind of cheat on. It is true. I have multiple books at home, how to prepare to take for an SAT, for chemistry, biology, whatever. And I guess the reason, another reason why Kathy, Superintendent Willis alluded to is that change is coming. And back when she was a teacher, they brought in different standards that she had to teach to, and then eventually they brought the MCAS in. And then over the years, MCAS has developed, and we've taught so well that MCAS, we do very well on MCAS with our children. So it might not be a bad thing to shake it up a little bit and change the way the test is done. I guess that's just kind of what my point of view is.
Thank you, Janine. First of all, I want to say that this is great. Okay, Ms. Coffey and Ms. Simone, thank you for generating this type of a response. It's good. This is really, we appreciate hearing your opinions. We respect your opinions, and quite frankly, over the last 2 school committee meetings, I've learned a lot that I didn't know, and I've gotten a lot of information, both from Dr. Daly and from the audience, obviously, and I appreciate that. I have been sitting here 15 years, and I'm going to say, and people in the audience have said this already, that this year, the 2014-2015 school year, we faced more change in the next year than I can remember in any 5 years combined. You're right. The superintendent's going to be leaving, moving into new school buildings. We're going to have a new baseball coach. There's a lot of changes going on. But I can honestly say that with great change comes great challenges, and with great challenges come great opportunities. And I am 100% confident that our administrators, and we have them sitting here today, will embrace the change, they'll embrace the challenges, and they'll seize the opportunity and move us forward and keep us right where we are or better than we've been in the past. I've heard words tonight like change and status, like status quo, and let's wait, and comfortable, and let's do more study. You know, I've heard those things, and I don't necessarily believe that. Mr. Kopp got up and talked about leadership, and I think we're being leaders taking the position that we're taking, and I think Patrick was eloquent in the way he expressed it. Yeah, I think there's a lot of questions, and I think we're going to get those questions answered by moving forward, depending on, again, how the vote goes tonight. But tonight we have, you know, Superintendent Willis sitting here, we have Patrick Daly, we have Kathy O'Connell from the middle school, John Bernard, we have AJ LaPret from the as far as I'm concerned, we have the best administrative team anywhere. I mean, I have full confidence in these people to carry us forward, to get through the change, to get through the challenges, and to really seize the opportunity to bring us forward. So, I appreciate you all being here. We do want to wind this up. I'm not sure what's going to happen here right now.
Can I add one more thing?
No, go ahead.
I'm not an educator. I've never been an educator, and I've never played one on television. I have helped hire all or most of the administrators in this district. I have to depend on my administrators, on our administrators, to tell me what they believe is best. School administrators aren't going to do things that they believe are going to harm children. And if you believe that, then you're living in the wrong community, because they aren't going to do that. And I'm not an educator. That's why I try to educate myself and go out to all of these presentations with the DESE and watch online the anti-park, the anti-Common Core, and then try to synthesize all that information. I was a journalist, so maybe, you know, I find it kind of fun to do all that stuff and do the research. But when I came to that conclusion, and you can ask Superintendent Willis how many times I've called her and said, are you really sure that Common Core is good for these kids? Are you really sure that Park? Because this is on my conscience, and I have to depend on her. We don't blindly approve everything that comes forward, but on issues like this, if I can't depend on our educators and administrators, then we should replace all of them. That's my feeling. They're making a unanimous decision here, a unanimous recommendation. We don't get a lot of unanimous recommendations. There's always one of the administrators is an outlier somewhere, and we've got a unanimous recommendation tonight. So that's a big part of what I'm basing my vote on.
All right, two quick comments before we vote. I'm going to ask Mr. Bowers and then Ms. Ericetti, and I'd ask you to just keep it as quick as possible so we can move forward. Yep.
I can assure you that your kids will do just fine on all of these changes. They'll handle them with no problem at all. And part of that is because you care enough about their education to be here tonight.
Okay, Karen, and then we're going to wrap it up.
I just want to say, if this doesn't go your way, because I know that could happen when we vote, please.
Guys,
wait,
please.
Wait.
I'm just going to ask you to be, it's been a very respectful and a very good meeting, please.
If this does not go your way, or the way that you think is appropriate, there are so many battles that need to be fought, and there are other places to fight this battle. It is going to continue. So I think the most important thing that I've learned tonight is that the dialogue is there, and we've heard it, and our administrators have heard it. I'd love to see our educators more involved publicly, working with parents in the community to do that, but that has not happened tonight. So just keep it going. Just coming here is one step. There are many other steps, and your voices are very important. They need to be heard on a much larger scale. All these other communities are doing it, and they've made different decisions. So we need to, or whatever we make tonight. So this needs to happen, and continue to happen. Don't let it go. Just keep it in the forefront, okay?
Okay, thank you, Karen. All right, at this point in time, I'm going to ask for a motion, if anyone...
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion that the North Reading School District administer the Park test in school year 2014-2015 in 3rd through 8th grades in ELA and math, and in 9th grade in Algebra 1.
Motion by Mr. Webster.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bowers. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion carries by a vote of 4 in favor, 1 opposed, Ms. Ericetti. Thank you very much. Dr. Ericetti. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the agenda.
I know, it's really
You're next.
Take a minute before they get out.
We should probably take about a 2-minute recess.
All you do. Whatever was
You did fine. But I was fine too, and I'm used to driving.
Yeah, but you don't look like it.
Pay attention. Maybe they're paying attention. We have to reduce these
And we did like a.
We need the town to buy screens and like capital planning, there needs to be screens. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for coming.
You asked a question, you said, it was on there, maybe it was and they all have technology.
It wasn't so bad. You're going to be chair next year, aren't you? You close the permanent vice chair forever.
People are still here.
Let's see what we can do this week before. I want to do the school pro graduated, then post to kind of start really quickly.
That's what I'm thinking.
I know.
Oh, there is one. So we have to file the superintendent evaluation, right? We have a deadline on that. We can't skip it tonight, can we? And that's where I think.
Well, let's move. Let's see how quickly we can get through some of this stuff.
That's the easiest. You guys have all of this stuff. You did it. We just have to say, yeah, you did a good job. Pat on the back.
If we can get a discussion short.
Patrick.
No, it was great. At least they did interrupt you. Like, I almost fainted.
I was surprised.
Well done. It was an excellent presentation.
I don't know. I sat in on the
Yeah. There were too many to count.
You guys ready, Kathy?
Oh, there were coverages.
Okay, we're going to resume the meeting, and we're going to ask Principal at the North Reading Middle School, Kathy O'Connell, Principal at the High School, John Bernard, to do the North Reading Middle School, do the middle school presentation first. Go ahead.
Yeah. Good evening. I'd like to just begin by recognizing my school council for this past year. One of my teachers was Helena Meyer. She's a 6th grade English language arts teacher. Stephanie Shakrella is a 6th grade social studies teacher. Helena Minton served as my community representative. She's the director of the Flint Memorial Library. Lori Giacalone was here. I'm not sure if she's still here. Was here. She was a parent representative. And Jennifer Sullivan was also a parent representative. So they served on my 2013-2014 school council. And everyone is returning except for Helena, who's retiring. So I congratulate Helena on her retirement. And I just would like to present some highlights from this past year. One thing that we've worked hard on at the middle school is continuing to implement our iPad initiative and Google Chromebook integration, both in part with Dr. Daly, but also with my Parents Association. With generous donations, we were able to buy iPads last year and Google Chromebooks this year. So we are continuing to implement those into our curriculum whenever we can. We're also continuing to implement the Common Core. That was this year. We fully aligned with our mathematic changes to implement the Common Core curriculum. This year we focused on the creation and implementation of district-determined measures. We also focused on implementing the new educator evaluation tool and a new special education program called the Connections Program. We continue to expand our language-based program, which is a special education program. And we implemented a new parent-teacher conference model this year at the middle school. And something that I'm particularly proud of is a group of teachers, administrators, and parents formed a group to think about what the middle school might look like when we move into it in 2015 and any changes that we may want to make. We gathered a group together and we talked about what that might look like, and I'll talk a little bit more about that But that's something that I'm very proud of this year, that we met throughout the year to talk about potential changes to the middle school. And just some student-specific areas that I'm very proud. As always, our Science Olympiad team competed in March. I believe they came in 5th this year. They did a great job. Our drama club production, we had 2 productions, a musical, Romeo and Julia, which went to a drama debate, a drama competition in May, and also our first ever opera, original opera, written and produced by the middle school students, which was about how North Reading got its name and about the elm tree in the center of town. A No Name Calling Week is something that we've had annually for several years now, and it's something that we celebrate. It's about bullying, but it's also about kindness and being aware of how kids and adults interact with each other at the middle school. Our Washington, D.C. trip, we just came back 2 weeks ago, and it was a wonderful trip, and I appreciate your approval for that annual trip. And I think the highlight for me this year was our Wonder Book initiative that I worked on with help from the Community Impact Team, again, my Parents Association, Mary Prenny, Nancy Parsons, and for those of you who don't know, the whole school read the book Wonder. Teachers and students and all staff read the book together. We invited in some senior citizens from the senior center and just had a wonderful, all year, just a great opportunity to talk about some of the themes and patterns in the book. We celebrated last week with a finale, and it was just a great opportunity to reach out into the community. It's something that I'm very proud of from this year. So those are highlights from this past year. As far as my proposed plan for this coming fall, I try to align my school improvement plan. It starts on page 11 of the plan that you have in front of you to the NRPS 2016 goals. So I try to formulate my goals around the district's goals. So the teaching and learning goals. The first one is to increase the effectiveness of collaboration time between teachers. I'm sure you're all aware that teachers get planning time, and I'm trying to really make an effort to increase the effectiveness of the use of that time. And something that I feel very passionately about is teacher collaboration and how that time can be used to really positively impact instruction. So we're working on looking at how teachers are using their planning time. We're continuing to develop and analyze and implement the district-determined measures. Those are local assessments that teachers are creating that measure a year's worth of growth. And they're created by grade level, subject-alike educators. And again, it's an opportunity for them to collaborate. It's an opportunity for them to assess what they, obviously what the Common Core standards are asking us to teach children. It's an opportunity for us to have the control and create the assessments. So we're continuing to work on DDMs is the acronym that we are familiar with. And then our third goal is, I'm very proud of something that I've worked closely with Dr. Daly and Principal Bernard and the math curriculum leaders to implement an accelerated pathway for mathematics starting in grade 7 next year. So that will happen in the fall of 2014. And something that I had last year as a goal, and I'm pleased to say that we achieved it last year at the middle school, have it again this year, and something that I was very obviously listening intently to the previous conversation, but something that is difficult for me as an administrator with MCAS is the lag time between when the students take the test and when we get the results to be able to make programmatic decisions. And so I'm very interested and open to new assessments that might get the information back to us real time, soon after the children take the assessments. So last year I had proposed that we would increase the student growth percentile for mathematics in 2 of the 3 grades, and we increased it in 3 of 3 grades last year. So I've got my fingers crossed. The test has already been taken, but obviously now we need to wait until probably mid-July, if not later, before we get preliminary information to know how well our students scored. But that is again a goal for this coming year. We'll have to tweak that now with the decision of the school committee to go with Park. But sure we can adjust that. This was already printed.
Good thing we went with you after that.
The other North Reading Public Schools 2016 goal is, again, continued technology integration, and that is something that I too feel is something that we can all work on and improve our students' access to technology. We are focusing, again, on iPads and Google Chromebooks, and we've been very fortunate at the middle school to have smart boards in nearly every classroom. Dr. Daly and the assistant principal, Michael Maloney, have been great on planning as to how we're going to get the smart boards at the current middle school down to the old high school, so that teachers who are used to working with smart boards and teaching with smart boards will have them again for the 2014-2015 school year. And I'm confident that that will happen, but we are continuing to also integrate the iPads and the Google Chromebooks. Student support services is the last area. I mentioned earlier that we decided to put together a committee last year to look at the parent-teacher conference schedule that we had been using. We had 3 early release days in November, and parents would call by phone to schedule a conference. And what happened, not in 2013, but in the previous years, we didn't have enough slots for all the parents to get a conference. With 680 students, we were having conferences into December. So we put together a committee, and my school council from the previous year helped me decide that we would have an academic open house in November, which we did this past year. We had 2 actually, where we invited parents to come with their students, sort of piloting student-led conferences where the students took their parents around to showcase the work that they had been doing. And then in January, we had more traditional conferences by invitation where the teachers initiated invitations to parents for those that they felt that they really needed to speak with, or for those whose children they had concerns for. And so we're continuing to implement that again this year. I did survey parents, I surveyed teachers, got all their feedbacks. We talked about it at school council, and we agreed that we're going to have 1 academic open house this coming fall in 2014, November, and 3 sessions of conferences by invitation in January for parents. And something that we try to communicate as often as we can. At the middle school, we have a team philosophy, so all students are placed on team. And at any point in the school year, parents can simply contact the team leader and schedule a time to come in for a conference at any time for any concern. So that's something that's available to parents from September 4th till June 20-something when the school year ends. It doesn't have to be a special time or a special day. They're welcome to set up a meeting at any time. The second goal is something that the planning committee that I mentioned earlier, the group of administrators and parents and teachers, when we think about changes we'd like to make to the middle school, we don't have an advisory, we don't have a social curriculum. Some of the bullying curriculum that we teach is done in health class. We've decided with the school council and this team that we put together, decided that we will dedicate times, about 20 times in the course of next year, where we will extend homeroom for 45 minutes, and we will have lessons around social curriculum, around bullying, around stress reduction, around goal setting, around kindness, around very relevant research-based issues that adolescent children at the middle level experience, because I do think those issues often form barriers to their learning, and I think it's time well spent. And it also helps kids see their educators in the building as more than just their math teacher or more than just their science teacher. So that's something we're going to be using some of Michelle Garcia Winner's materials to put together a social curriculum. We're not purchasing a curriculum that a company is selling. We're putting it together and we're going to try it out. I think we're very capable at the middle school to put together help from the guidance department and teachers and students to put together a curriculum ourselves. We are continuing to implement the language-based changes. That's a special program for students with language-based disabilities. It's a small class setting for English language arts and math, and so we're moving that into grade 7 next year for math and into grade 8 for ELA next year. Also, we're going to be implementing year 2 of the Connections program. That's a special education program designed for students who are on the autism spectrum, who are typically high to high average cognitive ability, but tend to have a difficult time with peer negotiations. And so this program is a fully inclusive program, but it is designed to have a special education teacher trained to work with those students to help them get unstuck and back into the classroom, and again, where they are able to learn and succeed. And then goal number 5 is something that came from that team of parents, administrators, and teachers, is to look at our general arts offerings. In the past, we've offered general arts classes by quarter. Every day for a quarter, you would have a general arts class, whether it was computers, robotics, performing arts, art, PE. We've got a large menu. We've decided that instead of offering them every day for a quarter, we're going to offer them every other day for a semester. And there are lots of reasons for that. One primary reason is our special education students who often receive their services. It usually comes from general arts times, and those students are missing those opportunities. By having them every other day, most students will be able to access a full general arts class without having to sacrifice some of the time for their services. It also, we're trying to think about sharing the facilities when we start to share the facilities with high school in 2015. By offering every other day general arts, it's similar to the green gold days that the high school has. So we're trying to be proactive and think about sharing our facility. And then just some initiatives that are out there that I'm thinking a lot about, that I'll be working on with my school council and this team of teachers, administrators, and parents, is talking about ability grouping in English language arts, social studies, and science class. I'd like to very much. I realize it has a price ticket, but in talking with a lot of middle schools in the area, most middle schools offer a full year of foreign language in grade 7. We offer currently only a full year of foreign language in grade 8. I would like to be able to offer a full year of foreign language in grade 7 and an exploratory in grade 6. And something the middle school, a weak area of the middle school, something we need to focus on is our response to intervention. What do we do when kids begin to struggle who are not immediately designated to be tested for special education services? So Massachusetts has a tiered system of support that's a protocol or steps, procedures for schools to use when students begin to struggle. And I fully believe that's something that the middle school could do a better job on. So those are just 3 areas that I want to look at and focus on for the 2015-2016 school year. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Kathy.
Tried to go quick.
Do we have any questions or comments from the committee?
A few quick comments. One, I was glad that you and John and AJ got to sit through that discussion tonight, because while we went with Park, I think a lot of fears were raised that hopefully the administrators can deal with next year when we are implementing Park. So I think that was helpful for you all. Really happy to see the accelerated math class that's going to be added, and then that will lead to algebra in grade 8 for selected students who show the ability to take that. That was a concern, and I know we're now back on that cycle where 8th grade students who are able to take math, not this year, but next year. Is that next year?
It's
No,
not
2
this
years.
coming fall.
2
It'll be
years.
fall of 2015.
8th grade students who show the ability to handle true Algebra 1.
High school algebra
Not the
class.
algebra we used to offer, but
Right.
true algebra, high school algebra, will be able to take that course.
That's right.
I believe that one of the biggest embarrassments in North Reading education is the fact that we don't offer a language in the 7th grade for a full year. We should be offering language from grade 1. We don't have the resources. I would support that 100% if we had the resources. I hope we have them next year. Same thing with the general arts offerings. With the new facilities we have, it'd be foolish not to add more offerings in our general arts area for the middle school students.
Thank you, Bill.
Good
Anybody
job.
else who wants to comment or question for Kathy?
I just had one comment. I'm really glad the Connections program is still being pushed. I wonder if you could just share any sort of anecdotes of things that have happened while you're implementing it, what you like about it, and some of the challenges.
The Connections program, I think without mentioning the teacher who's been running it, Gina Sacco, she's done an amazing job running that program. I think always, if we can keep a child in district, in North Reading, in their neighborhood school, it's our job to ensure that happens. So by providing programs for children with special needs, I think it's our responsibility. So it's been successful, this program, to help we had only 6th grade students in it last year, and they'll be transitioning into grade 7.
Oh, that's great.
That's wonderful.
That's great.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, at this time, I'd ask for a motion to approve the 2014-2015 middle school improvement plan as presented.
So moved.
It was very close, but I'm going to give Karen the motion. But you want to do a second? All right. A motion by Ms. Arricchetti, a second by Mr. Bowers. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, none. Motion carries by a vote of 5-0. Thank you, Karen. Yes.
I'm so impressed with how progressive this school improvement plan is at the middle school in general, but in particular for students with disabilities. I've been very close to this thing for 20 years, going back to the middle school level. This addresses so many issues: culture, climate, equity, heterogeneous grouping, all these kinds of things. All through the whole thing, there are issues that will help all students learn, and this has been a fight for a long time, and I just have to give Kathy so much credit for being so progressive, such a great leader on this. So excited to see some of these things, and I hope you give it its full support and resources.
Right.
I mean, a lot of these things will, for inclusion to really, really work, teachers really have to be supported. There has to be, other professionals in the classroom that can co-teach and do all the kinds of things, and some of that does take a lot of resources, but it's never going to happen unless the leadership is there, and this is just amazing.
Thank you for the kind words, Jeff. That's great. And I know Kathy appreciates it.
Thanks, Kathy.
I'm going to ask Mr. Bernard now to present the high school improvement plan for 2014-2015.
Set up second here.
Jerry, excuse me, you have copies of this presentation now.
Oh, we do?
Yes.
Oh.
Someone failed to pass it down.
That's that. I didn't get one.
Hilarious.
It is hot in here.
Hilarious.
Is there air conditioning in here? Does anybody know?
I think we should change some students.
There are windows.
Yeah,
Can we?
There's a window.
I don't care if I get in. I already got enough. We should have opened the window.
I thought about that one. I thought it jumped out.
Oh, excellent.
Jerry, could you speed up this agenda tonight?
Since he's become chair, everything's falling
I'm gonna pull a
apart.
school committee member from Beaver. I'm leaving at 10. I know. I'm glad that we showed up and you were able to let him speak, and that's good.
Isn't his hair great? His hair is
He's a great guy. Yeah. And he's funny. He's a funny guy. Remember how funny he was at the high school, the high school groundbreaking? He was a star. Right, I remember.
I didn't see that. You could hire him for parties. He's great.
You don't even know what district you're in or who's retired.
Oh, good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
We're going crazy a little bit.
Oh, thank you. You've been sitting for a long time. So following suit with Ms. O'Connell, I think it's fair to say Ms. O'Connell and I compare notes when we're doing our presentations to all of you with the school improvement plans, so that we think it's important that there's a great articulation between the middle school and the high school. So I'm going to also acknowledge the representatives of the school council for the high school, some of whom are here tonight, and I appreciate them being here. Marcy Bailey is one of our parent representatives.
I
She's
see that
here.
Marcy Bailey name around a lot. She's here? Oh, does anybody
She's
know
here,
her?
she's here, and still awake. Emily Kalos is one of our student reps. Mr. Campabasso, Chuck Campabasso has been a teacher, longtime teacher rep on the school council. Dr. Michelle Casoli-Reardon is one of our parent reps. Deanna Castro, who is here this evening. Deanna, thank you, one of our parent reps. Trish Colella, I've been the principal at the high school for 11 years. Trish has been on the school council since I got here, and she was on before, so she's still hanging in there with us. Another one of our student reps, Emma Furia. Brett Kunzer is an art teacher. He's one of our teacher reps this year. Matthew Layton has attended his last meeting on June 12th. Matthew, thank you for your service to the school council. You've done a great job, and I appreciate you being here tonight, Matthew. Mr. LaPrette, the assistant principal. Brian McAuliffe, again, another teacher representative, and Susan Shedd, one of our parent reps. So again, similar to the format that Ms. O'Connell followed, I think it's important for us to just kind of highlight for you some of the things that we are particularly proud of, I think, that result from the advocacy of the school council. So these are things that we talk about at our meetings, that we include in our school improvement plan, and it's nice to identify some of the things that are realized as a result of the efforts of the school council. So this year, we administered for the second time a survey to alumni. We began this with the class of 2012. The results are analyzed, they're discussed in faculty meetings. The survey is posted on our high school website. We've done this again for 2013. Some very interesting feedback from our graduates following their first semester of college. We usually release the survey sometime in February and give the students about a month to respond, and it's very encouraging to see the responses from our recent graduates. This year, you may recall that last year at this time, I had proposed to you the addition of some new co-curricular activities for students at the high school. So this year, we were able to introduce our Future Business Leaders of America Club, our Gay Straight Alliance, and Samantha's Harvest, all of which have been very active clubs with a lot of student participation. We had 2 more faculty book discussion groups this year, how to create and use rubrics for formative assessment and grading, and also engaging teachers in classroom walkthroughs. We have probably on average somewhere between 12 and 18 teachers that participate in a before-school study group, and it's voluntary. People show up somewhere around 6:30 in the morning. We have a discussion for about 45 minutes to an hour, and we produce some very good PowerPoint presentations from our discussions that we share with a larger school population on various topics in education. We're always very proud of the expansion of our course offerings. You may recall that I had proposed, annually I proposed to you for our program of studies the inclusion of some new courses, and it's grown to, I think since I've been principal, over 40 new courses now in the curriculum for students. The growth of our advanced placement program, our program has grown from 8 to 17 course offerings. We administered this spring over 400 exams to students in advanced placement courses, which is an extraordinary number. We, as you all know, you were very deeply involved in the NEASC accreditation site visit on March 2nd through the 5th. That was a lot of work over a period of years. It culminated with the site visit this past March. I'm expecting a preliminary report any day now. I think it's fair to say that sometime between now and probably the first week in July, the end of the first week in July, I'm expecting a draft report to be delivered to me at the high school. So obviously very anxious to get that. I think we put together an extremely good site visit for our review committee, and I'm excited to receive their report. The curriculum writing, revising of our curriculum, that was a multi-year process that resulted in the curriculum for every single course taught at the high school being completely rewritten to, in most cases, for those where it was applicable, to reflect the Common Core standards. And like Ms. O'Connell had mentioned about the identification of the district determined measures, or DDMs, and the development and implementation of common assessments, that's a lot of work that was implemented in the 2013-14 school year. I've talked to you on many occasions about the Naviance Family Connection Program for students and for parents. Basically, it's the college and career planning service. We've enrolled that in the past 4 years. Every student in grades 9 through 12 now has a Naviance Family Connection report. We do surveys with students through that system. It's very helpful in helping parents and students choose a path for how they will plan their high school years to ultimately achieve their goals beyond high school. Our climate study team has been active for many years. You may recall that I had implemented, with your blessing, over the summer of last year to take place in the fall, September, a freshman advisory program that was a pilot this year, where we had every freshman student in a power block with a trained freshman advisor. That program has been very successful. I did bring, I know you had a long meeting, but we have recently surveyed the current freshmen with the experience of their freshman advisor, and I think it's just important for me if I could just raise 3 data points that we were particularly proud of. With respect to the freshman survey as a result of the pilot program that we did for the advisory, and the My Voice survey that I think you're all familiar with, that we had administered in 2010 and 2012, to the questions that were asked of the students, teachers make an effort to get to know me. We saw an increase from 45% to 61%. Teachers care about my problems and feelings, an increase from 32 to 53%. I am a valued member of my school community, an increase from 40 to 53%. Teachers care about me as an individual, an increase from 47 to 56%. Teachers care if I am absent from school, an increase from 22% to 39%. And if I have a problem at school, there is someone that I can talk with who is an adult, an increase from 40 to 49%. And lastly, from teachers believe in me and expect me to be successful, an increase from 73% to 85%. So there was some very good data from that survey. Again, it's a one-year program that we had implemented only this year. We are going forward with implementing that for next year, so we will be surveying freshmen again. It was a much larger survey, but I thought that those were some interesting points that you all would be interested in hearing about. And lastly, the school council works very closely with me and is extremely supportive of the need for funding for additional teachers, and we were very pleased to get the blessing of the community for the hiring of an additional teacher for the coming school year, a humanities teacher, which I'm hoping to have hired very, very soon. And before I go on to the next slide, I do just want to call your attention to page 4, if I could, of the report that you all have. The council this year took great pains, particularly in the spring, to craft a paragraph for you that introduces the priorities for the coming 2 school years. And if you look at the bottom of page 4, there is a kind of a bold italicized paragraph. I'm not going to read this to you, you all have it, but just if I could take a quick second to just highlight for you that this is the position that the school council has taken for seeking the funding for additional staffing for next year. You may recall at the budget hearing in this room in February, I spoke about the needs for the fiscal year 15 budget, but I also did, as an aside, comment that I thought that the fiscal year 16 budget was going to be the budget that was really going to need to help us in gaining additional staff. And we prioritized as a school council, based on some data that I was able to provide to the council, where we thought those staffing would best serve our students in the coming year. So that's, I told the council I would call attention to that paragraph, so I wanted to do that because it was really something that we felt very strongly, unanimously, to include as something new for our school improvement plan. So if I could just go through our goals for the coming year. Much like Ms. O'Connell mentioned, we do try to reflect as best we can the overarching strategies of the NRPS 2016 strategic plan. Again, I'll just read through these quickly for the benefit of you and the audience that's watching on TV. Goal number 1 is to advocate for additional staff to maintain or improve student-teacher ratios that allow for a high level of personalization of instruction and support for student learning and allow for properly supporting students with identified learning disabilities. You're all very well aware of the increase in our student population. I don't think it's unrealistic to expect that our population in September this year could hit 800 students. Goal number 2 is to enhance the educational program for students in the areas of curriculum, instruction, and assessment, with a particular emphasis on providing students with the skills needed to meet the challenges of the 21st century and to ready them for college and career success. Goal number 3, to satisfactorily implement the goals of the North Reading School Committee, the NRPS 2016 Continuous Improvement Plan district goals, the goals established by the North Reading High School faculty, the governing laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the federal government, and the provisions of the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, otherwise known as NEASC. And goal number 4 is to provide an extracurricular program to students that contributes to their well-roundedness as individuals. Goal number 5, to expand the use of technology as a teaching and learning tool. Goal number 6, to complete the obligations associated with the post-accreditation site visit that was conducted under the guidelines established by the New England Association of Schools and Colleges from their visit on March 2nd through the 5th of 2014. Goal 7, to continue to support the transition to the new high school and the completion of the middle school renovation. Goal number 8, to continue meeting the provisions of the Common Core state standards for English language arts and mathematics. And goal number 9 is to implement year 2 of the new educator evaluation model. And so lastly, I just thought I would call to your attention some things we have planning in the works right now that we're looking toward the coming school year to address. The accreditation post-site visit obligations are going to be plentiful. I mean, we believe that there are going to be a number of recommendations from the report that we need to address, which is standard. I'm very confident in how the report will present to the community in terms of the findings, but there is going to be more work to be done, and we plan to devote our time to addressing those recommendations. Obviously, the secondary school building project is something that we feel extremely excited about, and we know that there's more work to be. We're moving in September, but that doesn't mean there isn't going to be more work to be done to see that building through, to welcome the middle school to the project in 2015. We have 2 faculty book discussion groups planned for next year in the fall. Again, just as a quick aside, we're very excited about the increase in modern technologies in the new high school. So I thought it was timely that we read a book that might help us as educators to do even more with digital learning strategies and how we assign work that's reflective of 21st century in education, and more importantly, maybe how we assess students as a result of that. So that's planned for the fall. And then the second book will be Schools Where Everyone Belongs. Again, that's a culture-centered book on just doing our best to make sure that we create a school environment where everyone feels as though they're safe and welcome and can do their very best work. We will certainly work to achieve the stated goals of the school improvement plan. So as we meet as a school council starting in October of next year, we will continue to meet and collaborate and work as a school council to continue to meet the goals that we set for ourselves. I think it's very fair to expect that I will be coming to you sometime in the early part of the winter with some possible new course offerings to be introduced in 2015-16. We're very pleased about the response to the international travel experience. You all endorsed a trip to Germany for next April. That trip is full. We have 45 students signed on. Very quickly. It was signed, and students signed up very quickly. There's a lot of excitement at the school around that trip. So that's happening next April, and I think there's just so many good things that can come from all of that you all can realize. The second year of the freshman advisory program, we expect to be doing some community presentations around some surveys that are fairly new, including the freshman advisory survey and the alumni survey for class of 2013. And I believe that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
I have one quick question.
Aaron? Dr. Denny?
Thank you. You're finally in the dark. The alumni survey.
Yes.
What's the response rate like?
I
How's that been?
can tell you, I happen to have the 2013 one right here. We had 55 respondents, I believe. 55.
That's really good.
So it's probably about, just about a third, maybe a little less than a third. Yeah, it's encouraging.
I look forward to seeing.
I think the best thing, it's an 18-question survey. Question number 18 is, the education I received at North Reading High School has prepared me well for my post-secondary education. 96.3% either agreed or strongly agreed.
And this is sent to all students regardless of whether they go to college?
It's sent to the entire
Oh.
class, yep, through the Naviance program. That's another beauty that we have. We have a full mailing list to students as a result of their Naviance
System is
accounts.
paying for itself. That's
Absolutely, absolutely.
Jerry, I wanted to ask a follow-up question on the survey. Are we going to follow, is it only a one-year survey, or next year will you still survey the class of 13 and then the class of 14?
Right now, it's only a 1 year for that class. Doesn't mean that it can't be, but that's what it is right now.
So I think we've talked before, one of the things that I'd like to say, and I know the committee's discussed it, is, and I don't know, we might get a much lower response rate, but a 5-year down the road survey. Did you graduate from college? Did you stay at the same college? You know those kinds of questions. Yeah. Are you employed in the field which you studied for in college? Maybe we won't get as many responses, but I know that we have a hard time finding that information. And in terms of measuring success of an education system, it's not. Part of it is, do they go to college? What college do they go to? Do they go into the workforce? Are they successful? But part of it is, where are they 5 years down the road?
Yep.
How are they adjusting?
Mm-hmm.
What are they doing in real life? Not just, I love partying, I'm a junior in college now kind of thing, So.
That's why we have reunions.
Yeah, we have reunions.
We can survey them at
We can survey them at the reunions, that's right. It's very good.
I don't
Very good
see
idea.
that.
Sure
I
they'd
don't
love
see that
that.
as being a difficult thing.
So if you could do that down the road. Jerry, one other thing, it's clear, and we've discussed this at the budget meetings that we had leading up to the budget. I know that we've gotten, the administration working with you, John, has gotten a little creative in terms of how to shift some teachers around.
Yes.
And maybe offer some more sessions of some of the core courses. But it's clear to me we need staffing. We need to figure out next year, because we're going to have, if we have 800 this year, we're going to have 830 next year, and we're not going to be able to offer all of our course offerings, and that's not a recipe for success. So we really need to address that next year. We can only get so creative in terms of.
I think it's fair to say that that is the highest priority,
Yeah.
is additional staff.
Anything else? Any of the other members?
I just want to comment that that 5-year out survey, that's the real high stakes test.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Measurable.
Measure of right.
John, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank the members of
Thank
the
you.
council
Thank you.
for all their hard
Thank
work. And at this point in time, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the high school improvement plan for 2014-15.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bowers, second by Dr. Ericetti. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. The motion carries by a vote of 5-0. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
I think next up, we have Mr.
Jerry,
Bernard.
can I ask you one question? Before we move on to the next item, I just want to ask Patrick, there was something that was mentioned tonight regarding technology education, and there seemed to be a disconnect between what some of the parents were
Yeah.
saying and what other parents were saying.
Big time.
I'm not asking you to answer tonight, but if there's any way to report to us whether there are some inequities in the system that we're working on. So if one room doesn't have a smart board or somehow this room's not getting access to Chromebooks or MacBooks or iPads, I don't know how you quantify that, but that concerned me hearing that tonight. So if you can figure out a way to, and maybe with the new digital learning coordinator coming on
It's a great
July
idea.
1st.
It's a great part of his, or her, entry plan. You know,
Right.
To really study that and look at that. Because
Yeah.
I think it's been so, I mean, since I've been here, when I got here, there was desktop computers.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
So we've launched iPads, Chromebooks, Google Apps. I mean, all this stuff has come out in the last few years, and it's rolling out. There were
Yeah.
smart boards in the district. There's a heck of a lot more now. And I can tell, I didn't get into this tonight, but as we're pulling them down tomorrow,
Yeah.
a lot of them are going to those elementary schools, and then the following year, a lot more are going. I mean, I'm not gonna.
And that's good. That's
quantify
what
right
Mel's
now,
asking too,
but-
Patrick.
But
If
there's
you
a
come in and
lot
give
more
us that.
coming, so.
But that'll be helpful down the road,
Repurposing is gonna really help with that process as well.
So if maybe in the early fall timeframe, maybe you can come back, that'd be great,
All right,
thanks.
great. Yes, ma'am.
Could I just follow up on what Mel said? When you're looking at that, just sharing what I had learned in looking at, I don't know if anybody looked at the Reading budget, school budget developments, but they have they are a little further ahead of us on the instructional side. They have 7 digital media specialists already. So there's already a certified person within each school there. I don't know how many people have digital learning certification within the system, but they did this huge iPad Chromebook initiative last year. And so they had all these great iPads. They could not get them up and running until December. Because you get all these devices for the people, but
The
Patrick can
infrastructure.
tell you,
Right.
they ended up with each specialist or technician, not the actual people using it, each technician needing to maintain 700 devices each. And that will come into play down the road for us.
Yeah, they did a BYOD initiative, and I've been to so many talks with John Doherty and others about lessons learned from their BYOD. One of the biggest things they found was if the teachers weren't trained in how to instruct differently, you bring a laptop to class and it's sitting there. And they actually, one of the biggest problems they had was they couldn't find a place to plug in the batteries and charge things up. So we've thought all that out. We're slowly rolling things out. We're slowly rolling things out, and we have, we have a real strategic plan in place. Our iPad initiative, for example, this year, 60 educators in it took part in extensive professional development. And quite honestly, a lot of them went in, we asked in our survey, a lot of them said we didn't know what we didn't know. And they went in thinking, I know how to use an iPad. They left realizing, wow, I didn't know how to use an iPad with kids. And it's different. So it's a slow process, but we're getting there. And 1/3 of our teachers right now in the district are trained with iPads and using them, and it's more and more every year. So
So
that's
now
good.
on
Thank
the
you.
other side, as we look at adding devices, can
Yes.
we also look at, I know that you're looking at the curriculum side, but also the actual technicians.
Oh,
Pretty
yeah.
soon, we are going to be strapped
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
terms of bodies to maintain these.
Absolutely. We have, and again,
I-
part of NRPS 2016.
All right, I think we can put something on in the
But Kathy
fall.
wanted to-
Go ahead,
Well,
Kathy.
no, Patrick was just saying it. He was, speaking to our strategic plan, NRPS 2016.
Right.
And technology integration is one of the 3 big strategies with additional staffing for the next 2 years of the plan.
Right, from both sides of it.
Yes.
Yes.
We'll put that on the agenda for a later.
Are you all set now? Because you've used up all your questions for me. All right, I just want to make sure. All right.
No.
I'm going to ask Mr. Bernard now to present, I think, a proposed change to the student handbook
Yes.
that he has.
Thank you, Mr. Venezia. Interesting segue. There's a change that I'm proposing for inclusion in the student handbook for 2014-15, and we're headlining this as a digital citizenship policy. Digital citizen practice. We're looking to change the way in which we work with students in their use of devices that they bring to school for an educational purpose. So I believe the superintendent distributed to you some summary language, and I want to acknowledge Mr. LaPrette because it was an extensive amount of work that began in the winter with his involving faculty and students in researching area schools for policies and practices that they were implementing at their schools that were working well, and we used that data to craft something that we believe could work well for North Reading High School. So essentially, what we're looking to do is to, in a sense, in a good and positive educational way, is to tap into the devices that students bring to school, particularly a smartphone, and not limiting their use of it beyond an educational purpose at the discretion of the teacher. That's essentially what this language proposes. So, currently we have, and I think it's fair to say that we have relaxed what had been, I think, a pretty hard line on cell phone use at the high school this year, because there are so many things coming from an educational standpoint that it's almost silly to not allow students that have this little mini computer on their person to not be using it, again, in a very structured educational way under the supervision of the teacher. And so we've been allowing that to happen this year, and no longer is it that always the cell phone is asked to be turned into the main office when it's being used in the school. Now, there doesn't mean that there are going to be some very strict guidelines, and I think that this proposed language speaks to that, but we do believe pretty strongly that we're really doing somewhat of a disservice to our students by not letting them take advantage in, a very thoughtful, supervised way to use their, I'm going to say the smartphones, because that's really what this is aimed at, again, for an educational purpose at the teacher's discretion and under their supervision. And I think it's fair to say that the research that the committee did that worked on this for the last few months did a good job of researching what other area schools were doing, but again, kind of crafted the language around what we think would work best in our schools. So what this language proposes and the approval that I'm seeking from all of you is really just a change in our practice around cell phone use in the school.
Comments or questions for Mr. Bernard?
I have one comment. I didn't see anywhere in here where prohibited texting during school.
Texting would not be prohibited under this.
So when are the kids going to be around to get some
Again,
education?
it's going to be, because the idea is it's not free for all with the phone. It's if the texting is necessary at a power block or during the lunch to notify a parent of a change in a practice, an athletic practice that's after school or something like that, that would not be frowned upon. But if it's just general texting back and forth to students without any supervision, open-ended, that's not what we're condoning here. It's more in the classroom, in a supervised setting with teachers, that we would say, you know what, if you need to take your smartphone out to complete this activity, do that now, and we would allow that to happen. It's not talking on the cell phones during the school day. It's not, texting to the person that's sitting right next to you or in some other classroom. It's a supervised way in which we would oversee this.
My observation is that texting is something that goes on essentially continuous throughout that whole population.
Yeah.
It's a continuous exercise.
It could be.
It never
yeah.
stops.
Yeah.
We actually had a school committee member once that texted through every meeting.
I'd do that. Are you talking about me?
No.
We are not proposing that, nor are we condoning that. We're saying that, if there's a quick text that notifies a parent at a lunchtime as opposed to being in class texting students, that's not something that we're condoning or proposing that you that you accept.
I think the policy or the regulation page ought to be changed to make sure that that is clear, that that's something that is not a part of the freedom to use the device.
Okay?
Because texting, to me, is just, it's essentially talking on the phone, using the phone as a phone without using your voice.
So there are provisions in here to allow, though, the communication device to be used. So are you saying no texting period or no texting?
Well, texting's a different kind of communication on the device. You can certainly use a device for all sorts of purposes without using either the voice or texting elements of the phone.
I guess, all right, Cliff, I guess it's just, the texting to me is just another form of communication with the phone, and it already talks about when you can use it and when you
Right.
can't.
Right, that's-
So,
And so basically, they can text during passing times, so
Yeah.
between classes, at lunch, and if they're allowed in a power block. That's basically it, right?
Right.
I mean,
if I had my way, texting would be illegal, to be honest with you. It would be against the law.
You don't have email.
But, yeah, I know, but I mean, this, but I can understand
Those
where
that text
John's going.
continuously,
Yeah.
and those that don't.
But I think you're restricted as to when you can and cannot.
That's the
Do it.
spirit here, is that it's not just open-ended all school day.
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
One is, did students have input into this, and if so, how? Do you want to talk about
They
that
did.
first?
We have a student senate.
Okay, so
And
the
the students,
Senate-
and the student senate was the group that we used. And they each were charged with researching a separate school, a school in the area.
Oh, okay.
That was their duty, and to bring language back that was then, used to kind of craft the policy that we wanted to implement.
Okay. One comment and then one other, actually, two comments. The use of the landline telephone in the main office as a policy, I just wonder if that's gonna work. I think it's a great thing to do, but I know how many times, I know parents might get a call from their kid, during power block or wherever, saying, I need you to pick me up earlier because something was canceled or something
Mhm.
like that. They don't text or something like that. So they can't call unless they use the phone.
Correct.
Unless, I just find that I'm okay with it, but I just don't think it's gonna work. But
It is
just my
what we
opinion.
do now.
I know, but I'm just wondering if they do this, that they violate this all the time. I'm just wondering. I don't know. It seems kind of weird. And then I would like some feedback after we implement this, if this is what we implement this evening, to know whether actually kids are doing it
Yeah.
and following it.
Mhm.
I would love to know this, whether it's successful or not.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say we're going to keep an eye on it and see how it works for us too, because we may need to make some adjustments along the way. There may be things we're seeing that we don't like, or otherwise. So.
Interesting.
Jerry, I have a couple questions. Does this, this to me almost sounds like it should be a district-wide policy and not a school-specific policy? And does this run afoul of any policy we already have in place regarding the use of personal devices in the schools? That's my first question. I guess that's for the administration or
Policy
for Patrick.
subcommittee, actually, because they're.
Oh, yeah. Do we have a policy right now that related to use of personal devices?
We have wireless communication devices. It's a policy that it talks about by which students stay in close communication with their parents. So it's talking about not using wireless communication devices to contact their parents, and I believe that's
Okay,
why
that's
that
right,
language
right.
is in there.
Okay.
It does talk about in this same policy, which is JGFH, wireless communication devices in the possession of students must be turned off and kept out of sight during school hours.
See, that's
But that's in
different than-
reference to parent contact.
But
It-
that's, okay.
But anyway.
I think
That
what
sounds
Mel's
like a
saying is,
general, that sounds like it conflicts with this.
yeah, is it inconsistent?
Yeah.
Is it inconsistent with the existing policy? Because the policy
We'll
would
have to change the
obviously
policy.
supersede the handbook information.
The second policy that we have, the school committee has, is IDAC, technology resources, and in parentheses, internet acceptable use. And the language in this is more amenable to having educator oversight to access, but it's about the internet, accessing the internet in the
Okay.
district.
And
Pat,
and
go ahead.
that is a policy there's a policy that we are in the process of developing.
Right, that's why I was bringing that up.
And that was social media.
Right, which is related to this.
I think it's, I mean, when I read that, it sounds more like cell phones as opposed to smartphones. I mean, that policy is probably several years back before, we're not really talking about making phone calls, we're talking about using a computer in a pocket, so. But I think it's something to be looked at. And I just want to say that we've talked quite a bit about this. We probably want to work into that language about how students access the internet. And I think they should be using the internet provided, not their own cell phone carriers. They should be accepting the policies that we push down that are going to have all the filters on there. So if a student takes out the phone to use it to access the internet, they're accepting, we'll have a student, we could have a student with all the filters and all the proper SIPA regulations that they're accepting. And it would be a violation for a student to use their 3G account. Because the high school is going to have access in every room. I think that's important because we need to, that's how we would make sure that students are getting only proper approved content on their phone. So we can work that in.
But so I know John needs to get this printed, but I'm just
No,
concerned
I'm not-
that it
that's not
either
a
doesn't
rush.
go far enough or goes too far based on our policy. I guess the other question I have is the take photographs, students must not take photographs, record video or audio with their device unless it is at the explicit direction of the teacher. I'm going to guess that there are kids taking pictures, passing in the hallways 100 times a day.
Oh, I
if
don't
not
think so.
more. You don't think so?
I don't think so, no. I don't. Now?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
So they're not using, okay. Because that's just, it seems to me that if we're allowing them to use them during passing times, I guess I was just wondering, can we prevent them from doing that?
I think, I have enough faith in them that they will handle this responsibly, and that when there are those occasions, like any practice we put into place, if there's a violation, we'll deal with that violation.
Okay.
But I don't see it as a widespread one. I think that.
If they do it, it's a violation?
Yeah, right, exactly, and we'll deal with that. I mean, it's pretty specific here what they must and must not do, and I think if there was
Okay.
a student who compromised that, we would deal with that.
I see where John's going with this whole thing. I think he's, obviously trying to loosen it up and get moving with the times.
What he's doing, yeah, we're admitting to reality
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
and we're putting a more sensible
The
policy
only
in
issue
place
is the
is
one
what
I see that you raised, Mel, and that's if it's inconsistent
Right.
with a policy that we currently have. So I'm in favor of it. I just wonder if we might want to just double check it against the policy to make sure that it's consistent, unless you guys feel it is.
I think it is. I know the
Consistent?
wireless one. We do need to revise that one,
Yeah.
language-wise, but I don't think it's misaligned with this.
Okay.
No, I think Patrick raised the point that it was written when cell phones were the
Yeah.
wireless device as
Yeah, I would
opposed
ask-
to smartphones.
It's not going to trump it.
I would ask though that Patrick, that we add a little bit more in this, if it makes sense, is that you're talking about the internet access.
Mhm.
Is that,
I think it could just be a line, just to reference that, because the AUP will speak to it. But it would be that students will access the internet through.
right, something like that?
All right.
Through the school, which
Exactly.
means that all the filters will be applied to their devices when they're in school, which is really kind of what we want.
And that's
Correct.
what they're
Right.
agreeing to.
Okay, let's do
Okay.
this. I'll take a motion with that amendment to the handbook that John proposed.
I move to accept the digital citizenship policy. Digital citizenship is a policy for the NRHS handbook, and with the amendment as suggested by Dr. Daly.
Okay, we're clear what that is. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Webster and a second by Ms. Imbriano. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Burnett.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is the superintendent search next steps. I'm going to ask Ms. Arquetti and
Got the
Mr. Webster.
okay.
Do you want to do the MASC?
I said the MSBA, SSBC update.
No, I've got.
Oh, you got
them on
it.
the list here. I've got them on the list, believe me,
He's
they're all
on, he's
here.
on it. So I'm very pleased to say that we had 27 members of the community, and both in our school district and externally, who want to be part of the superintendent search committee for internal candidates at this time. Mel and I have discussed this as the subcommittee for this work, and we really believe that we would like to accept all those who applied to or were interested in participating. Pending their availability, they can confirm they're available to participate in the evaluation of any candidates who apply. Currently, we have one candidate who has applied. The deadline is tomorrow. So I will be able to report at our next meeting what sort of the outcome is. But there'll be a meeting with the search committee, everyone will be informed that they are part of it, if you guys decide that's okay, and accept our recommendation. And we'll move forward and do a meeting where we discuss our responsibilities.
Yeah, we understand that 27 is probably an unwieldy number, so one of the things that Karen and I discussed was, given that so many residents and employees in the school system were interested, if it was 100, we wouldn't say yes, but 27, we can manage that, and we can set up a system where everybody gets to participate, but people have different roles within
think it's
that
a good
committee.
idea. I
And
like it.
we have 8 or 9 teachers, we have administrators, we have many parents, and I think that those people want to be part of it. They all have been interested in this system, whether they have children in the system or not, or their teachers or administrators, and I think the more we can have and get input, the better.
I agree. Do you include Mr. Jerby in that list?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Comments, Cliff or Janine, they're suggesting that we include all 27 members. I like it. I like a broad spectrum, and I think all the people on that list are people who are very...
It's amazing, and they wrote such wonderful things.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see.
All right.
So
So
would
what the
request a
next
motion.
step is going to be to, well, obviously wait through tomorrow to see what we have for applicants, right?
Right, and then we'll schedule, the plan will be, once the application deadline hits, Karen and I will talk. We will plan to schedule a meeting with the members of the committee. If some can't make it, we'll contact all 27 members. Hopefully, we can do the meeting here, because we probably want to start staying away from the schools for even the old high school, because it's just going to be a lot of moving and stuff. Have a meeting, Karen and I will kind of coordinate and organize how we're going to run this. And then Karen's going to doodle a schedule as to what we might, how we will march down the row here. And then I think, Kathy, we discussed, we initially said October 14th, but I think we had said October 17th or 18th as...
17th is a Friday
So October 17th as a final date?
for me.
For you, right. So you can work through that week and,
Mhm.
okay. So we'll march towards that date. We'll have, the hope is to have someone in place far before
Can we send
October,
something
but-
out to all the people that have applied and
Yes,
tell
we
them
will.
that we're going to?
Yep,
Yes.
I'm going to be sending that out with the doodle poll, which is just a way to assess scheduling for our
Right.
first meeting. And when the applications are, or application, depending on where we are, we land tomorrow, I'll be sending them out after talking with Mel
Right.
about the
Good.
people we're
Excellent.
meeting with.
So you guys are in charge of hiring the new superintendent. I'm going to plan the going away party for the old superintendent, all right?
That sounds fair.
That's more of my...
Yeah, that's your strength?
Yeah, that's my strength. Okay, any questions on the process as we move forward?
Any objections to the inclusion of all 27, or you guys
Yeah,
okay with it?
Cliff, how do you feel about that? You don't want to...
No, I didn't have any problem with going.
Okay.
As many people as submitted anyway.
Okay.
Great.
Janine?
No, I'm fine.
Good?
Thank you.
Okay, excellent job.
Thanks.
Keep moving forward. All right, next on the agenda, superintendent's evaluation. And Janine, are you handling this?
Yes, I am.
Because I was confused.
Well, it was a little difficult, but she got a glowing
A
review.
little difficult?
Yeah.
I
Well, I read through the entire book that was presented of all of her goals, and I did read every single page.
This is the new educator evaluation system.
You read that whole thing?
I did.
Are there
Took
a
me
lot of
through it.
pictures, or is it all?
No, it's not a lot of
Oh.
pictures, but it was very interesting, very educational. She does a ton of work. I don't know how she gets it all done. I know she has excellent people working with her, so I'm sure that has a little bit to do with it. She exceeded all of her goals. She got pretty much exemplary across the board. And just in the beginning, they kind of asked overall opinion of comments on how she has done. And I'll just read a couple. She's a model for superintendents statewide and nationally. Her performance should be emulated by all superintendents in New England. A leader in the community and highly respected in every venue. She managed guiding a $122 million project without taking away from the instructional leadership role. She's truly unique in her ability to lead and govern the NRSP system. Hits all of the goals in an extremely challenging year with a high level of enthusiasm and excitement. Keeps student learning at the center of all discussion. and never has NR, North Reading, had such an effective steward of our school district and community. And the NRPS 2016 puts a spotlight firmly on the student learning and preparedness. And I think those comments in of itself probably speak to, how she got exemplary.
Are you going to read any of the bad stuff or just the good stuff?
No, there was no.
There was no bad stuff. That's the point I was trying to make. There was no bad stuff.
There was no bad.
Should keep her.
We would, yeah.
I mean, to be honest, that was the most difficult thing of doing this evaluation, not also the fact that the process is a nightmare, and I don't know how people on that side get it done, but the sadness as I went through each page saying, this is the best person we've ever had running the school district. Now, I've only experienced 2, but it's just really sad doing this tonight. So, it's fun, it's great, it's a great evaluation, but it's sad.
Well, that form and that process, I was totally confused, which is to be expected. But I gave Kathy the highest possible marks. I mean, I just, that was a no-brainer. So I gave her all A+. Anybody else?
The thing that is for the people out there, the thing that's interesting about this format is that the documents are the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's form.
I hope they do a better job of hack than they did on that.
And they have 4 categories: unsatisfactory, needs improvement, proficient. And proficient is in very large letters and is highlighted with shading all the way through the document.
Right.
And then there's exemplary.
In small letters,
Right.
smaller font.
Again, in small letters. So you're encouraged to say proficient. And that just didn't fit all the way through. And there's a requirement that you write a little statement about why is it exemplary. You have to justify it in writing. Well, my typing skills, you talk about kids doing, mine is two-fisted typing. I never did learn how to do that right. And I wrote probably more prose than I've ever written before in an evaluation. And I justified in words in every case that Kathy fits the exemplary category. So I feel as though when I saw the final distilled version of all of the board come out the same way I did it, I felt even more justified in my ratings.
Jerry, if I could add one more thing. Tonight was a difficult meeting, and I could tell it was difficult for Kathy because, and I understand the parents' anxiety because it is a big change, but I kind of feel bad when people start questioning that we're not going to do what's right for the kids of North Reading, and I could tell that Kathy was a little bit anguished by that. But if you heard her talk and the passion and the commitment and the history that she brings to this, that's why she's been so successful. Because she is truly committed to our kids in our community, and I wish it was going to be for another 10 years, but it's not, and I'll get over it someday. In 10 years. In 10 years.
I still haven't recovered from her telling me she was leaving.
There was one comment that Janine did not read off of the form, and that is that she's the consummate professional educator. And I think all those who have listened to her pontificate on various subjects will believe that that's absolutely correct.
Would you like to comment, Madam
Oh, my goodness.
Superintendent? Briefly?
Well, first, I'd like to thank the committee. I'm honored and privileged to be the recipient of this evaluation. I set forth a year and a half ago trying to set an example for our educators that are also going through this educator evaluation system, because I never ask anybody to do anything that I'm not willing to do first. So I thought it was important for me to pave the way and set an example. And I'm not going to tell you that it was easy, but I am going to tell you that I found it to be a positive, reflective experience. We don't often take the time to reflect about our successes and our failures, and then how can we use that learning to improve who we are and what we do. So while it is cumbersome and still a bit clumsy, I found it to be enlightening and valuable. So I think as we move through this process of improved educator evaluation, I think it will become easier, but you never want it to get too easy that you become complacent. I think we need to continue to challenge ourselves as professionals to examine why we do what we do and how can we do it better. And it's always about the students, because that's why we're in this business from the get-go. And of course, nobody in my position is able to accomplish what this district has accomplished without having exceptional administrators and teachers that really do the hard work, boots on the ground, day in, day out, and work with our students and help them be the best that they can be. And Matt, I'm glad you're still here, because I've had the joy of getting to know some of our students pretty well over the years, those that are representatives of the school committee, and they just make me proud every day. And I get to see the product of 13 years if they go to kindergarten, and 14 years if they go to preschool too.
Or if they stay back one of
Or- Absolutely. Sometimes you need a little more time. But, you know, not every educator gets to see the end product. And I get to see just what it is that our schools are able to offer to our students so that they can be successful going forward. There is nothing like a 5-year evaluation of what they're doing post-graduation from college or whatever they decide to go on to. But I do have the benefit of spending some time with our high schoolers. And when I interviewed Matt and Madison Capizzuto for my last Inside NRPS this year with NORCAM, I was asking them what were some of the things that meant so much to them with their regarding their education in North Reading, and they were so articulate about what they learned, not only cognitively, but what are those soft skills that they have learned that are going to hold them in good standing for the rest of their lives. Now, granted, their families have an awful lot to do with it, but I think, you know, they spend an awful lot of time in a school district as well, and we do have the opportunity to shape the future, and I think we're doing it very well, and that's because of the people that work in the school district under your leadership, and you can't underestimate a strong committee, and as Karen said tonight, it's a strong team. It's not just a committee, it's a team of individuals who work hard together, and it's not always hugs and kisses, but I can tell you at the end of the day, there's consensus, and that is what is so important for me as a superintendent, needing to do what you expect, and also doing what I think needs to be done for a school district that's already very high performing, but there's always a little bit higher that we can move towards. So thank you again.
Ken.
It's been wonderful. It's my last evaluation. I'll frame it. Thank you.
That segues too. I know the superintendent and I have discussed the COLA raise for July 1st when the pay rates generally change. We haven't voted on that, Kathy, right?
For
you.
You have not voted on that.
We
No,
have not.
you and I had a conversation
So I think,
about it.
again, now, we're segueing into the next agenda item, which is contracts. We've had
Yes.
several contracts we've been negotiating. We're about to approve tentative agreements, but I wanted to bring up the superintendent's contract. Obviously, she's got 2 more years to go on the contract, but she's leaving in October. But again, on July 1st, we generally discuss the COLA raises. I've talked to Kathy about that, and my recommendation would be to the school committee to approve a 2% COLA for effective July 1st.
So moved.
Your motion?
No. Somebody else has to make the motion, though. Wait, you can't.
No, I didn't. Mel made it.
Mel made it? Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
Mel made
sorry.
the motion,
All right.
and Cliff is going to second the motion. So is there any further discussion regarding the proposed 2% increase? No. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Motion carries by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you.
Next,
That was the gold sticker.
we have the paraprofessionals agreement that's been negotiated by Janine,
Yes.
superintendent, and Michael. Were you involved in that?
Christine Mullen.
Okay.
Great.
So the recommendation, and I think the vote we're going to ask for is to approve a tentative agreement based on the ratification by the paraprofessionals, which may not come until the fall, I think, because obviously school gets out tomorrow. But the proposal is a 3-year contract with a 2% increase for each of the 3 fiscal years that the contract, of the agreement, and the formation of a joint labor management committee to discuss a number of issues, beginning, I think, in September.
Yes.
And I think that's pretty much the terms of the contract. There's not much else changing. So Janine, did you want to say anything on that?
No.
No? Okay. So what we need is a motion to approve a tentative agreement with the paraprofessionals union based on ratification in the fall.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Arricchetti, a second by Mr. Bowers. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We also have a tentative agreement that we need to approve with the secretaries. Again, it's a 3-year contract, and the pay raises would be 2 the first year, 3 the second year, and 1 the third year. I think they also agreed to a written evaluation tool and a job description. The people negotiating that contract were, again, I think, the superintendent and
Yes.
Cliff.
And Dr. Daly.
And Dr. Daly, okay. So those are the terms. Cliff, anything you wanted to add to that?
I think that's good. You want a motion?
I need a motion, yeah.
Motion to approve that?
Okay, motion by Mr. Bowers.
Second.
Second by Ms. Arricchetti. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries by a vote of 5 to 0. And then we also had contractual negotiations with some of our administrators, including the 2 assistant principals at the high school and the middle school, the digital learning coordinator, and the elementary and the secondary special education supervisors, coordinators, 2 separate people. There's 2 of them, one for elementary and one for secondary. Excuse me. And again, I think there was a 3-year contract recommended with a 2% pay increase for the 2 assistant principals, and there's a provision for a buyback for 5 days vacation each year that they don't use. And anything, I think 220 working days for the 2 assistant principals and the digital learning coordinator, and a 215-day schedule for the coordinator of elementary and the coordinator of secondary special education.
That's good.
Jerry, just one clarification. On the assistant principals, that's just 5 days annually, does not carry over. It does
Right.
not
If you want to buy
accumulate.
5 days of that
Right.
year's vacation,
Okay.
you can buy it back, yeah. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say
We
aye.
have a motion.
You get a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's have a motion.
It's almost 10 o'clock.
I'm
Your
delirious. Who wants to make the motion?
He did.
Okay, Cliff moves to
Second.
approve. Mel gives the second. Now, any further discussion? Are you gonna make any motions?
I did. You totally. You go. Okay, Mel said it.
She made a hand motion.
You have to
completely
speak up.
ignored her.
All right, I'm gonna disregard Mel.
That won't be the first
In a
time.
second.
Nor the last.
And a second by Janine, all right? I must be going deaf on this side over here. Jeez. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none,
We're
motion
done.
carries. Vote of
That's
5
it.
to
We're
nothing.
done contract
We're done with
negotiations, right?
contracts.
Yay.
We did every one.
Excellent.
Nice
Good-
job,
and good
team.
job, by the way, who everybody who
Yes,
negotiated.
great
those.
job.
Excellent job. SSBC update briefly.
You have 30 seconds.
We actually have a meeting tomorrow at 5:30. And the meeting, Kathy, is at the,
The Flint Library Activity Room, beginning
Okay.
at 5:30 PM.
everybody know that Flint Library Activity Room, 5:30. It's not in the usual place at the high
It's the
school.
new location due to the moves from the middle school to the high school and everything else going on.
Okay. Janine and Cliff, you guys want to give a little update on what's going on over there?
The auditorium seats are in.
They're kind of interesting colors
Yeah.
Very scattered.
and kind of scattered all over.
They'll be full all the time, so it doesn't matter.
Either you love it or you'll hate it.
It's a design element, but it's color.
Yes.
Color is good.
Is that a
As
is
long
that
as
a
it's
design
not
element?
neon.
It wasn't a mistake that they
No.
put.
No,
colors
no, that was
on
designed
it?
that way,
That
no
was
question about it.
designed.
They told us about that a long time ago. How did you guys like it?
I'll reserve judgment.
Well, I was wondering, and I wasn't on the design team, so don't take offense to this. If the school, brick-wise, was kind of light, medium, dark, why didn't they do that same thing with auditorium seats? Why didn't they kind of graduate?
Yeah, randomly.
Instead of anyone that has OCD is gonna be a little bit
Oh, I know, going in
taken
there.
back.
The younger people that I have talked to like it better than the older people that I talked to.
Well, also it's change, which
Change.
sometimes it takes a little
Jeff,
bit to
how
get
did you
used
like
to.
it?
All good.
Okay.
But it
You're
was
so positive.
wonderful to see the seats in there. Did you count them?
Yes.
I counted the seats.
There were too many to count.
It looks like they're all there.
Well, they were numbering if you just waited.
No. Take a look at the numbers.
Take a look at the
all right?
numbers.
If you think the colors are confusing,
Right.
the numbers are much more confusing.
Hey, good.
Okay? But anyway, there's a lot of progress being made. We have less than 80 days left to the first day of school. There is a lot of finished work being done. There's a lot of work left remaining to be done.
I believe they're gonna start
Final-
waxing the floors.
We will,
Final cleaning starts the first week in July.
Yeah.
There were some conspiracies, Jerry. I had people asking me if there was a code or some sort of word they were supposed to be seeing in the seats
find
because of the way that, and I said, I don't think so.
I even tried to see what a code.
No pattern.
on my phone.
I heard we're just gonna leave the plastic on.
QR code.
They're all covered in plastic.
And I was in there with.
How long are we taking on this particular topic?
No, I just want to say, Jerry and I were in there Saturday, and 3 letters, OMG. That place is unbelievable. Jerry sat in a seat, he lifted up the plastic. The lights they're putting in the Main Street are really cool. They have like these light bar kind of things, and then these funky looking lights that are hanging down. I mean, it's really cool.
But I
It is
think there's
just-
only 3 lights.
Yeah, there are.
All right.
That's why our
No, they look
energy
great.
usage is going down.
They look great. All
And
right, so
it looks great.
Kitchen
again,
equipment is in place.
Yep.
And it's looking good. The gym floor is.
Oh, yeah. Almost in.
At least, well, on last Thursday, it was, I would guess, probably 75%.
Saturday was about 90, Cliff, and they were working on it Saturday.
Yeah, it was.
I bet it's done.
Okay, so
It's moving.
anybody wants to get updated tomorrow, 5:30 in the library meeting room. Next item on the agenda is the policy review, and it's a second reading for GAM and GAMR, which is the regulations associated with that policy. And again, this is the background investigation policy. It's very complex, but I think it's pretty much based on what the state law is
Yes.
right now. We did approve it at first reading, so I'd ask for a motion to approve it second reading. So moved.
Second. Oh, go ahead, Janine. I heard Janine say
I
second.
barely heard something over
I heard
there.
Janine say
All
second
right,
before
we have a
me.
motion by Mr. Bowers and a second by Ms. Imbriano.
Wait, give her a chance to make the second.
She did, she
I
said
gave her
it,
a chance.
she said it. Any further discussion regarding this policy? And again, it's a fairly complex policy, but I think we've reviewed it.
Yes.
It's fine.
No further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none? Motion carries by a vote of 5-0. Varsity coaching positions, I'll ask Mike to give us an update on these. These are positions that the athletic subcommittee had recommended to the school committee.
Great. So the athletic subcommittee met last week, and we reviewed the status of the athletic budget. And we, you may recall, we discussed at the April school committee meeting these 2 positions. It was decided it was best at that point in time to hold off until this meeting this evening on June 23rd, when we had a better idea of how the FY14 fiscal year closeout process was going. I'm happy to report the closeout process has gone smoothly so far. We've been able to identify some available funds in our FY14 general fund due to conservative spending throughout this fiscal year that has been able to be set aside for May and June athletic expenses. So at this point in time, we do anticipate that we'll have enough carryover funds in our athletic revolving account to support 2 additional athletic coaching positions. And the athletic subcommittee, certainly we're in support of these 2 positions. The estimated available fund balance that was discussed at the athletic subcommittee meeting was about $17,220 over the next 2 fiscal years as we close out this year and look to our projections in fiscal year 2014. The cost of 2 additional assistant coaches would range anywhere between $7,500 and about $8,448. So at this point, we felt comfortable that we could, set the funds aside for these 2 coaching assistant positions. We did discuss at the meeting, I do want to make the full committee aware that we continue to see a couple of challenges with our athletic program expenses, one of which has been transportation, and we've seen a significant increase this fiscal year, which is mainly the result of the new contract, which was bid out last year and got negotiated last spring. The athletic waiting time period for the athletic runs in particular had increased by about $25 an hour, which as a result increased our transportation expenses this fiscal year. The other challenge is the rental charges, in particular the rental charges which have arisen over the last few years during the project for tennis and storage rental. And one of the things that we're hopeful that we will experience some relief of these expenses in the future. Certainly with the rental, the tennis rental will no longer be required after next fiscal year. We hope once all the project is complete, we won't need as many storage and pod rentals as well that we have currently. We're also working on some creative ideas to try to minimize the impact of the transportation expenses and look at maybe through large capital over the next year. We'll be exploring what the potential savings may be of purchasing multifunction activity buses that particular teams that meet 15 or smaller could certainly utilize with the storage and so forth, and save on and kind of do that transportation internally and not contract out for those certain trips. So I'm certainly working with the athletic director, Mr. Dave Johnson, to identify the number of runs that could certainly be where this type of transportation and vehicle could be used and what the savings could be. So we'll be working on that over the summer months, and we'll certainly be presenting those options next fall when we look at our large capital plan again. So at this point in time, I think we can. We felt confident in making that recommendation at the athletic subcommittee, and open up to any questions on the full committee at this time.
Any questions for Mike Conley?
I just want to say that the plan is for these to be assistant varsity girls and boys soccer coaches. The numbers are exploding. We expect to add another 20 to 25 freshmen in athletics next year, over and above the total for this year. And it's justified. We had 50 or more girls last year and 70-something boys, and we're expecting over 80 boys this year and maybe close to 60 girls, and we don't have enough coaches.
We want to try to keep everybody.
We want to try to keep everybody participating.
I had heard also that there was an explosion of the number of girls for professional volleyball, but there were nearly 30 who signed up, so I was just wondering about that.
30 freshmen?
That's what,
Holy.
that's what the.
I haven't heard that.
That hasn't been brought to our attention, so
No.
it's something we'll have to
All right, I'm
discuss.
glad you brought that up,
Yeah.
Marcy.
The varsity coach told the team up here today.
Okay.
Okay.
So if that's the case, that might require.
Well,
we'll have to
it
look
very
at
well
that.
might. We may
Right.
have to go to 2 freshman squads or something along those
Yeah,
lines, so.
last year there was no freshman squad, it was just JV. and
Right,
varsity.
and that was numbers driven, I think, a little bit. but
Yes,
yeah.
it was, and it was
Okay.
fine last year.
All right, let's take a look at that.
Mike, can you talk to Dave about that?
I will.
And put it on the agenda for the next athletic.
I don't know if that's accurate, but that's what the
Okay.
team was.
Thanks.
Thank you, Marcy. Okay, next, we got a vote on that. It is a
I think
budget.
Janine should make the motion.
Yeah, I do too.
Fine, I will make the motion to hire the 2
Bucks and-
expenditure for the 2 soccer coaches.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion by Janine. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Webster. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries by a vote of 5 to 0. Nurse substitute rate. I'm going to again turn this over to Michael Conley.
Great. So in your packet this evening was a memo and some information about our nurse daily substitute rate. Essentially this evening what we're putting on the table and asking for a vote is our recommendation to increase our daily nurse substitute rate by $50 from $75 per day to $125 per day. I think as you can see on the attached report that indicated several North Shore peer districts and surrounding communities, the market standard in terms of this going rate is about $125. The average of these communities listed was at $126. It's very important that we have nursing coverage and an adequate nursing substitute applicant pool to pull from when it is needed. When we don't have enough substitutes on our nursing list, we are forced to use a nursing agency to ensure that there will be nursing coverage for that day. And nursing agency rates can range from about $375. So it's to contract out for these services, it's significantly higher. So we're recommending an increase of $50 to $125 for the 2014-15 school year. We feel this will allow us to adequately grow our nurse substitute pool, and this will put us in line with the going rates for nursing coverage.
It certainly seems to make sense, and I mean, financially, if we're paying that kind of money, if we can't get somebody off the list, that's ridiculous.
Right.
So, again, the proposal is to increase the rate to $125 a day.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Briano.
Wow.
A second by Mr. Bowers. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carries by a vote of 5 to
Sherry,
nothing.
now you've unleashed a monster.
Thank you.
Next, review of town-owned land. Has everybody looked at every parcel of land that's available?
I reviewed the town-owned land, and I don't see any interest in any of it for the school committee, but unless anybody has a different, if
Anybody?
someone else might have a different opinion.
We've been doing this for years. I don't know that we've ever found a bargain on that, so.
Nope,
Nope.
no interest.
Okay.
We're gonna take a motion that we have no interest, right?
All right, yeah.
I'll make a motion that the school department has no interest in any of the town-owned land listed on the annual municipal review 2014.
Motion by Mr. Webster.
Second.
A second by Ms. Imbriano. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carries by a vote of 5 to nothing.
Should just be nice, you're actually listening now.
Next, next on the agenda is our summer meeting schedule.
I thought we met all our summer requirements for this meeting. How long it's been.
Well, the recommendation by the superintendent is July 28th and August 25th with the goal-setting workshop for August 6th. Is everybody able to do that?
I would prefer to move the summer meeting from the 28th of July to the 4th of August.
To the no meeting in July at all, to the 4th of August?
No,
Yeah, August 4th.
I can't do August 4th.
You can't?
No.
I'm
Going
away.
away.
Anybody else, August 4th?
I'm
Mike's
away
not
the
here.
first
It's
week.
fine, I don't have to be there.
Either is fine for me.
All right, so Mike can't be here, and Karen can't be here on the 4th.
Oh, Mike.
Mike Conley.
Oh.
What?
I thought you were, I'm like, Mike isn't on the board anymore. Mike Conley.
Mike Conley, jeez, we gotta get out of here, it's getting too hot in here.
You're really impressed.
Yeah. Sorry, Mike.
Is that right?
Cliff, so you can't do the 28th?
I can, I said I prefer the 4th.
Okay. Because any dates go to me, because this takes priority over everything else,
I understand that.
including
I'm just trying
vacations.
to coordinate my summer, that's
Okay.
all.
Kathy,
Would another day of the week make it better?
are you going that whole week, Cliff, or 28th?
No, but I have to be in town for the 6th for our goal-setting workshop.
Oh, I see.
I have a
Oh.
dental appointment on the 5th.
Well, geez, we should
And
just
so
change that, I mean, you know.
What puts it 3 in a row?
We'll go on a whole calendar year schedule based on your appointments.
I mean, you can't blame a guy for trying. Right?
I'm trying to get 2 vacation days in.
You can make it the 28th? You
Yes.
can make it the 28th, I can make it the 28th, Janine, Mike?
Yeah.
Cliff? All right.
Too bad.
No, seriously, if we can accommodate you, but there's 3 other people that can't make it on
Yeah, well, it's the way it is.
the. Are you gonna be
I
mad
get
now?
outvoted all the time anyway.
All right, so I don't think we need a vote, but those are the dates. August 6th is 6 o'clock for the goal setting, and then the 28th of July and the 25th.
Where will we be having the August 6th meeting?
For goal setting?
Yeah.
In the old high school, new middle school,
Oh, it's okay, all right.
we
And
have
then-
conference room
okay.
in there.
All
I'll
right.
give you those
Mm-hmm.
particulars.
According to my revised agenda that I've been following all night, we were to get to routine matters at exactly 10:10 PM.
Here we are.
I got it right here.
We are.
All right.
Oh, wow.
We're ahead of schedule.
All right, routine, routine matters. We have no minutes to approve. The budget update, Mike, anything further on that? Or?
I did have an update related to a job description that was in your packet.
Oh, right, that was the,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what the administration is proposing this evening is, you will notice in your packet, there was a job description for a Performing Arts Center and Distance Learning Lab Manager. We met as an administration with the high school principal, the middle school principal, and we felt that as we prepare to open the new high school next fall, there will certainly be a need for additional support and assistance in managing the new spaces that will come online. Certainly the new Performing Arts Center and the Distance Learning Lab. These spaces will come equipped with new state-of-the-art AV, sound, and lighting equipment, and we feel it's vital that this equipment and this space is kept well-maintained and the equipment is safeguarded at all times. So we certainly anticipate that as the building comes online, and that the request for the use of this space will increase steadily over the course of the year. And we felt having additional assistance in this capacity will certainly help protect the town's investment and ensure that when the space is utilized, that it goes as smoothly as possible. Some of the requirements or the responsibilities of this position would be that they would maintain and update a master schedule. They would be required to keep an updated list of trained technicians at all times. They would also certainly need to have the skills to operate the equipment in both spaces. And it also involves the ability to market the space with the goal of increasing rental funds and revenue as certainly down the road. So the stipend that we are proposing is a $1,500 stipend. I have confirmed that this is a stipend that can be paid from the facility rental revolving account, so there would be no need, it would have no direct budget impact on our general fund. We've done some research, so this wasn't really a job description that was, we didn't recreate the wheels with this job description. We, many other surrounding communities who have also recently opened up new buildings that would include state-of-the-art performing arts centers have established similar positions, and we would certainly plan, as the job description states, to review the responsibilities and scope of work after 6 months. We think we have a good idea of the position and anything that would need to be tweaked. But we feel it's certainly necessary at this time, and we request your approval of this job description and open up to any questions.
Any questions? I think it's an excellent idea, Mike. I'm not even sure $1,500 is enough, but we could certainly start there.
Right. We've seen in other districts who started this position with similar space, they started at $1,500, and they, as you notice, we will be tracking hours and the commitment that they'll be spending, and if it needs to be adjusted,
Right.
we can do that after 6 months.
Questions? Okay.
Move to approve to establish a performing arts center and distance learning lab manager for the new high school, middle school.
Stipend of $1,500.
With a stipend of $1,500.
I'll second.
Motion by Dr. Arricchetti and a second by Ms. Imbriano. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Motion carries by a vote of 5 to 0. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Bids and donations. We do have Principal John Burnett from the high school is asking the school committee to accept a donation from Chartwell's, which is our vendor for the school lunch program. A donation of $1,000 to provide a scholarship to a deserving high school graduate. So it asks for a motion to accept with gratitude.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, again, a motion by Dr. Arricchetti, a second by Mr. Webster. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries by a vote of 5 to 0. Principal of the middle school, Kathy O'Connell, is requesting the school committee accept the following donation: a middle school parent association donation of $3,000 to help fund the cost of the end-of-the-year activities, especially costs associated with Legacy Day. I wonder if we have this money already. We better vote on this right now, because after leaving here tonight, they may be rescinding it. So we have a motion to accept the donation.
With gratitude, yes.
Okay, motion by Mr. Brown, seconded by Mr. Bowers. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Motion carries 5 to 0. Subcommittee reports. Finance planning team met on, I think it was June 12th.
My birthday.
And
Nice.
happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
On June 12th, we talked about the carry-forward budget. Let me see. We exceeded our local receipts this year as far as collections. The circuit breaker, I think, was, what did we say, 40,000? We received a plus $40,000 in circuit breaker. Superintendent Willis did tell us that there were 3 new students coming in to preschool that were special needs, and that would require an additional teacher for that purpose. We went through a 2015, we went through a town meeting recap, and we talked about the school building project. I think that was pretty much what we covered at the financial planning team meeting. So, and then we had an athletic subcommittee meeting. I'd ask Mr. Webster to report on that.
Quickly, the committee recommended that the Kipnis Court the name be placed on the surface of the gym, and that's going to be discussed with the architect to get a cost and design how much that would cost. We discussed the new fence that's been put in. I was actually quite pleased to see it go almost to midfield and the field along the turf field along Route 62, and then it goes all the way up behind the scoreboard. It would be great if we could get matching fence to go the whole way, because that new fence looks awesome. We saw the banners that are going to be put up in the new gymnasium, and they are beautiful.
Outstanding.
Dave Johnson and Mr. Bernard did the work on that, and Dave brought in a sample. And the initial banners we're going to get are going to be Cape Ann League champion banners for all the sports who've won Cape Ann League championships. They're going to be hung in the gym. They say the team name and then the years that they've won the championships, and then any new championships they win can be sewn right onto the banner, and there's plenty of space, and they're beautiful. And then we're going to also move, they're also costly, although we're already getting donations from some of the boosters and others. And then after that, we'll look at sectional and state championship banners for other teams. Continued discussion in the Hall of Fame and where it's going to go at the high school, as well as the other display cases. The head coach for the baseball and softball teams have been posted, and Dave Johnson will get back to us with an update, and he was going to be posting the girls lacrosse coach position, the head coach that is opening. And then we talked about the assistant varsity girls and boys soccer coach tonight, and also what I think is a great idea, if the budget, if it makes sense, looking at multi-use vehicles for transportation. And finally, Frank Carey, even though he retired, can't get enough of us, and he was at the athletic subcommittee to show us a video on this portable batting cage, very cost-effective, that could be installed in the gym or even the auxiliary gym at the new school. So we looked at those, and I think Frank was going to work with Dave Johnson and John Bernard, and also talk to a representative from the company that sells those batting cages. We talked about even possibly having two of them, because the cost is pretty low.
It's about $3,000,
Right.
and we were going to get donations to provide them. So it looked like a pretty good investment.
Because we're losing, after next year, when the high school's torn down, we're losing the bunker batting cage facilities that we now have. And that's it.
Thank you, Mel. Okay, anything in the administrative report?
No.
Yeah. Right.
No correspondence either.
No
so we're all
correspondence.
set.
Future meeting, future business. July 25th is the right date then, right? for that?
26th.
26th, okay. Next meeting, and on August 6th is our goal setting.
28th. I'm
28th.
sorry, 28th. July 28th, August 26th.
She doesn't care.
She got to review. She got to review it. Now she's
Got
going
a
to
review and a raise. She doesn't
Yeah.
care. We'll be lucky to see her for the next couple of weeks. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second. All right, motion by Mr. Briano, a second by Mr. Bowers. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carries. I tell you, ever since we started sitting in this room,